Welcome to the POD Cast, the Pride of Detroit podcast, which you can catch on all of your podcasting platform. Now streaming live both on YouTube and Twitch. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I am filling in for the adequate host, Chris Perfett, who is not feeling so adequate at the moment. We wish him well and the best, but we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to recap Lions Raiders, but we're going to lead off the show, of course, with NFL trade deadline talk. The deadline has come and passed. The Lions made a move, certainly not the move that I think a lot of people were hoping or expecting for. We're going to break it down, whether we're disappointed, excited, somewhere in between. My name is Jeremy Reisman, as I said, at Detroit Online on Twitter. With me, as always, our co-host, our rock god, our senior editor, and our at Ryan_POD on Twitter. Ryan Matthews is here. How we doing, Ryan?
Doing well, man. The bye week, well deserved. Well deserved.
From us or the team?
All around.
All around. All around.
Bye week for everybody.
Yes. Well, soon, maybe. We'll get there. It doesn't feel like it's quite there yet, but we'll get there. Filling in for me, I guess, since I'm shifting over to hosting duties for this show. You know him from our YouTube channel. You know him for our film breakdowns over on prideofdetroit.com. You know him for just being an awesome guy who lives in Detroit, knows every damn thing about the city. And you know him as mcannon313 on Twitter. Morgan Cannon is here. Morgan, how we doing, buddy?
We're doing good, guys. The Lions are 6-2 with their snow flurries. I got the beanie on still, so we're ready to go.
I love it. Well, let's jump right into it here. The NFL trade deadline, as I said, has come and passed. The Lions get Donovan Peoples-Jones for a 6th-round pick. We'll talk about him in a minute. But obviously, kind of an active day. I believe there was 8 total trades on Tuesday. Some of the big names did come off the board. Some of the big names did not come off the board. Most notably, I guess, Montez Sweat and Chase Young, 2 edge rushers. Some other names here and there, but those were kind of the big names that at least some people were hoping for the Lions to get. So I'm going to throw it to you first, Ryan. What's your overall thoughts on the Lions making just kind of a small splash instead of a cannonball, let's say? Right move, wrong move, underwhelmed, overwhelmed? How you feeling?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, I'm pretty whelmed. I'm pretty whelmed.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Obviously, I think that the Lions had a need for the kind of player that DPJ is, right? Like, I think that with Marvin's sudden retirement or stepping away from football, I should say, as he stepped away from the team, the next guy up was Antoine Green, right? And I think what that really, I think what this move let us as Lions fans know was that Antoine Green is probably not quite there yet. And the Lions wanted an insurance policy. And you talk about the wide receiver position. Yeah, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. But after that, I mean, I guess maybe we were kind of maybe under the impression that Jameson Williams wouldn't have got off to such a slow start. Not saying that him and DPJ in terms of what they bring to the team are kind of like one-to-one comps. But I think just having another steady presence in that wide receiver room was something that the Lions wanted to kind of bolster and make sure that they weren't going to get caught with their pants down after the trade deadline if they were to incur another injury, right? If Josh Reynolds were to incur an injury, well, there is no DJ Shark in the waiting, coming back from IR like there was last year, right? So yeah. I really think that this was a move kind of made as hey, we get some more depth. We have a contingency plan in case something happens, but depth is an important thing in the NFL, and DPJ fills a role.
What about you, Morgan?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's not the move everybody wanted when everyone was getting really excited about the trade deadline. But at the end of the day, this is a position that the Lions were thin in. If someone did, God forbid, go down. I was hoping that, we're going to get into it, but I was hoping they could have maybe added another outside corner. That would have been nice to make me sleep a little bit better at night. But this helps, man, just because, God forbid Josh Reynolds misses time or something along those lines. Like then, DPJ can play a bunch of different roles. He has special teams experience. He's a Detroit kid, obviously, as we know, Michigan guy. So I like it.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit lower on it than all of you guys. I mean, I was kind of okay with the receiver room, even without Marvin Jones, because you have a bunch of versatile pieces. If you lose Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond can play on the outside. He played a ton of it last year. J-Mo can play more on the outside if it comes to it. I'm not that bummed if Antoine Green is getting more time. I do think you're right, though, Ryan, that's kind of how I read the situation, too. I know there are some people that might read it as, J-Mo, which I think is way too premature. I think the Lions still think, even though J-Mo is continuing to struggle out there on Sundays and Mondays, I think there's still plenty of hope there. Obviously, they didn't move him, which some people suggested, which I think was kind of ridiculous. But yeah, like what Morgan was kind of leaning into at the end, like the true place where this team is very thin, provably thin, is outside corner. And I wasn't expecting a splash, and it didn't look, and now that the dust is settled, it didn't look like there was a ton of corners that were truly available. Jalen Johnson was out there, but the Bears must have been asking for something big because he's a very talented guy, and the fact that they weren't able to move him shows me that they were asking probably for a first round and more, and the Lions weren't willing to give that up. And I think some of the quotes here that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell said made it clear that this if they were going to make a move, it was going to be very calculated. It was probably going to be very modest. This team was never going to give out a second round pick, a first round pick. And I know people are upset. Montez Sweat goes inside the division to Chicago Bears, who are apparently both buyers and sellers at this point. And obviously, I think the thing that is hurting everybody, and understandably so, is that NFC contenders got better. Is that some of these guys that everyone wanted went to NFC contenders, and now it suddenly looks like, oh, the Lions aren't taking this seriously. Oh, the Lions aren't showing that they are true contenders. They don't have that competitive spirit, which that's a step too far. But I think you can, it's fair to be upset when Chase Young goes to the 49ers, right?
Yeah, and you kind of have to add context, like with anything. The Niners, for instance, have been good for how long now? Like, they've been flirting with the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship since 2018. It's been a while. So I get them being really aggressive. I get some of these, teams that have had their quote unquote window open for a while being really aggressive, but it's just, I don't know. You don't want to pull the trigger too early if you're Brad Holmes, right?
Well, yeah, and that's okay. And let's just pull some of the quotes here because I think they're very telling, and hopefully, I mean, this isn't going to sell everybody. People are still going to be upset when Chase Young goes for a third round compensatory pick. So not even a low third round pick. It's the lowest of third round picks. That's going to be a tough pill for some people to swallow, but here's to me the key things that both Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell said, and let me start with Dan Campbell because I think maybe his was almost more telling. He says, quote, "Brad and I said from day one, man, we have a plan in place that we don't want to alter. We don't want to mess with that, and we're in year 3 of this thing right now, our beginning of year 3, and everything had to be right." Lions this is what they've said every part of the process. We have a plan in place. We don't want to stray from that plan. And I mean, he's telling you, they're still not in that phase where they think they need to go all in. They are, and I said it a week before the trade deadline ended. This team is their window is just now opening, and they don't want to dig into their future picks. I know a round 3 doesn't sound all that expensive, but if you've trusted Brad Holmes this entire way and you've seen the way he's drafted on day 2, how can you not continue to trust this guy's plan? They were at this time last year, they were 1-6, and now they are a top NFC contender. Everything they've done, every single step of the way, has been the right way to do it. And they want sustained success. And I know Lions fans, listen, we've waited 70 years for a winner. And now that we have a little bit of taste of it, we just want to grab that. We just want to take the bull by the horns and be like, this is ours. This is our year. Look at the NFC North. It's bad. Look at the rest of the NFC. Bad. The opportunity is there. This organization doesn't want to look at that and this is our window, we got to grab it. No, our window is always going to be open. We don't care if the NFC North gets better because we're still going to be better. Listen, if you're going to throw all your chips in, it's not even just about winning the NFC. You got to win the whole damn thing. So Can you catch the Chiefs? Can you catch the Ravens? Can you catch? I don't know. Maybe you can, but I think this regime has earned at least a little bit of trust and a little bit of faith that you might need to be at least a little bit more patient. And that's not to say the Lions can't win the Super Bowl this year. They're still a really talented roster. How many? I mean, does one guy always make the difference? No, this team always talks about the team. Maybe you go out and like the Bills last year, you go out and get, what's his name? Pass rusher that gets injured in the Thanksgiving game.
Von Miller.
Yeah, like maybe it backfires in that way. The Lions don't want to take that risk right now because they are continuing to build. So I mean, I'll step down from my podium here, but I just think people are getting a little bit crazy thinking this team absolutely needs to go all in right now and try to win a damn Super Bowl while also ignoring the fact that they can still win a Super Bowl without one additional player.
Yeah, it kind of seems almost like the argument that people were making, if you remember, right, the offseason in between 21 and 22, when it was, hey, the Lions have cap space. There was some promise at the end of the season. Maybe they can hit the ground running and contend in the NFC North. Look at what the Bengals were able to do, right?
Right.
And I think that there might be some of that. Well, the Bengals, they flipped it around and they went to the Super Bowl because they went all in on free agents and getting new names. And sometimes it feels really good for that pleasure spot in your brain to see Chase Young's name being dangled out there. And it's like, okay, like that's the guy that we want opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. And that would solve all of the Lions' problems if they had just one player that they could add. I think the thing to center people and to bring people back to reality is, man, if you watch Monday night's game, isn't it going to be good when this team gets Jonah Jackson back healthy and Frank Ragnow back healthy and David Montgomery back healthy? And there's just a laundry list of names and players and guys at key spots, right? That if the Lions get a little bit healthier, I mean, today there was a small little bomb, that Dan Campbell dropped where he's like, hey, James Houston's break, it was pretty clean. So, we're thinking we might be able to get him back. I mean, he said that we're talking about December, right? But like, okay, like how awesome would it be to guys, we're less than a year removed from when James Houston exploded onto the scene.
Right.
Around Thanksgiving, right? Like, so I think you think about getting some of those players in the fold back that are big time contributors. Like I mentioned it going into the Monday night game. Like, hey, I'm really interested to see how Ben Johnson adapts the offense without Jonah Jackson and Frank Ragnow and David Montgomery. What's it going to be like when those guys get back, right? Like we watched the dominance in the Green Bay game. We watched the dominance that running game has been able to establish an offensive identity for the Lions that frankly they've just kind of been missing the past few weeks, right? And I think just that idea of getting players back healthy and back into the fold for a team that a few weeks ago we were saying top 3 team, not in the NFC, in the NFL, right? Obviously the Ravens kind of put that into a little bit of a tailspin, but I just want people to know that like reinforcements are coming and they're going to be back in a big way for a team that if they can get back to being, it's an offensive league, right?
Yep.
If the Lions can score points, they're going to be in football games and they've proven that they can do that.
Yeah. You're not going to, there's just going to be those weeks. The Ravens game is an outlier. I kind of just take it as such. Monken hit the Lions with the kitchen sink kind of like stuff that they just hadn't seen. So I still think the Lions are a top team, and I agree with everything you said, Ryan. Now, like they'll get so many people back, like late in the season, if you can get guys like James Houston and CJ Gardner-Johnson back, like that would be massive for this team. Huge. And I want to remind people, they're like, it's a 3rd round pick. Brad Holmes with 3rd round picks so far has produced guys like Aleem McNeil and Kirby Joseph, man. So like we kind of need to slow down with it's just a 3rd round pick, right? Like, and then go ahead.
I was just saying, and the other thing is it's not just a 3rd round pick for Chase Young because you are also going to hand that man a ginormous contract, and that's going to it's not going to prevent you from signing your other players that are due. Your Amon-Ra's, your Penei Sewells, your Jared Goffs, your Jonah Jacksons, all these guys that their extensions are right around the damn corner. It's going to make it a lot harder to fit all those guys that brought up in the system, those guys that you said through the last 2 years are cornerstones to your franchise. Suddenly you might be pushing some of those guys out for Chase Young, a guy who I will remind you is an enormous injury risk, correct?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been available for a lot of. That's been one of the major holdups of his career, getting off to the way it probably should have gotten started at Ohio State. He just can't stay on the field consistently. So, and the one thing I do want to chime in on the philosophy that we're discussing is like they've always said, like in so many words, their goal is to be like the Ravens, right? Like they're good every year. It's a program. Like there might be years where they're really good. There might be years where they're but they're never bad because it's a great program. They want to be a team like the Ravens. They're not like the Rams. So.
All right.
And I guess the one other thing to kind of put a bow on all this is like, are the Washington Commanders really going to trade away a premier edge rusher? This is a position where those guys do not hit the open market, right?
Right.
I mean, did we see Brian Burns get traded? Are the Carolina Panthers a really good football team? Like, I mean, even going back to last year, right? Like the whole rumor was 2 first-round picks, and that wasn't enough for the Carolina Panthers. Chase Young gets traded for a 3rd-round pick. I'm just trying to do the math. I'm trying to do the calculus on that. But I think the point, Jeremy, that you brought up is the point that I've kind of maintained throughout the entire trade deadline process, right? Is like Brad and Dan are committed to doing this thing the right way. And why would you take away the greatest asset that this organization has utilized for the past 2 off seasons?
Draft capital.
Accumulating talent through the draft, right? 3 off seasons, right? I mean, gosh.
And yeah, I think that whole bit about, maybe these pass rushers aren't exactly what the Lions want or who they think some other teams are, because Dan and Brad basically said that. Like, they didn't name names, obviously, but here's another quote from Dan Campbell. Says, there are some players that you may not even know about that could be perceived as very, very good players, but maybe the tape's not there. And then Brad Holmes comes and says, let me pull it real quick. Shoot, I lost it. Okay, so those same names that you see pop up when you start getting into conversation, it doesn't work out for the best for us. There are names, but often that's not reality. They're basically telling you some of those names out there, they're not as good as their name. They're not as trustworthy as their name. Maybe they're not as good of a culture fit. And again, you can disagree. You can say, a Chase Young is worth the injury risk. He's worth not being a perfect culture fit. But the Lions have had a plan, and they stuck by it. And they're a 6-2 football team because of it. And so I just think there needs to be a little bit more trust in this regime. I'm not saying you have to have blind faith. I'm not saying you can't have your own opinions. I'm saying if 48 hours ago you thought Brad Holmes was the best thing that happened to the Detroit Lions, you cannot turn on him like this because he didn't do what you exactly wanted at the trade deadline. We don't even know if some of those were options. We don't know if Chase Daniels would have come here. We don't know any of this. We don't know if they would have taken the Lions' 3rd over the 49ers, comp 3rd. We don't know any of that. And so
but we do know that Dan said that Brad was, tons of phone calls, right?
Right.
He's working the phone. He's doing it. It's not like he didn't do his due diligence, right? So, can we just real quick?
Did I say Chase Daniels? Chase Young.
Well, the only team that was this is a great segue.
Yeah.
The only team that was in the market for a quarterback were the Minnesota Vikings.
That's right. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, let's talk NFC North, because every team in the NFC North oddly got involved. We get the Bears, as we said before, getting Montez Sweat in kind of a curious deal. The Vikings, they send away guard Ezra Cleveland. Did he go to the Browns? He did, right? Ezra Cleveland to the Browns? No. Did I mess that up?
Minnesota traded Cleveland to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's right. Sorry. But they received Joshua Dobbs for a 6th-round pick, and then the Packers send a starting corner, a good starting corner, Rasul Douglas, for a fifth, Rasul Douglas and a fifth for a third round pick in return. Let's start with Sweat real quick, and we gotta hurry through this one. And then on the other side, in the start of segment 2, we'll talk a little more Donovan Peoples-Jones. But let's start with Montez Sweat. Here's the thing. Obviously, no one really expected the Bears to be buyers here, but in a way, it makes a lot of sense. One, they have a lot of draft capital. 2, they have a ton of cap space. So while it looks weird that you're taking a rental on Montez Sweat for a second-round pick, they're almost guaranteed to give this guy an extension because they have to spend, they have so much cap space that they literally have to spend it to at the minimum. And so they'll overspend for Montez Sweat even if he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, couldn't they have just done that in free agency?
Well,
why did they need to get him in the building right now and surround him with this losing culture and a head coach that's on the hot seat? But in all seriousness, right?
That's a good point.
Why are you trading a second-round draft pick for a guy that you could pay buku bucks to in the offseason?
If you say
you can overpay him all you want, right?
But you don't know he's going to make it there, right? If he gets traded somewhere else, maybe they give them the extension.
I feel like you got to run the risk, man.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Montez Sweat is not like the generational talent where you have to be like, keep your hands off. He's ours.
Can you draft a Montez Sweat in the second round? I think so.
Maybe. That's a fair point.
It just seems like more just general buffoonery from the Chicago Bears. So, I don't know. What do you think, Morgan?
They're obviously not winning anything of importance this year. So I'm with Ryan. I'm just like, why the urgency, I guess? And Jeremy's point too, I don't think Montez Sweat is Myles Garrett or, anything close to that. I think he's a good player. But yeah, it's I'm just not really sure what their plan is. I think they might be flailing a little. Is this what you would categorize as flailing?
Yeah, it kind of set precedent when you traded a second-round pick to get Chase Claypool.
No, he's not on your team. That's a tough situation.
Wonder what's going to happen with Montez Sweat.
Man, if they can't sign him to an extension, oh boy. Maybe this is Ryan Poles his flailing here, where it's just like I got to make a move. This might be my last few months on the job. Let me try to do something that'll get people excited and hopefully save my job come January when we're golfing over there. Rasul, we don't need to get too much into Rasul Douglas. It is interesting to see the Packers kind of, forgive the pun, pack it in a little bit, wave the white flag as Morgan is doing. But yeah, let's talk about Josh Dobbs, because I think that's maybe the most impactful in the immediacy in terms of, they're not going to start Josh Dobbs right away, but he's probably eventually going to be their starter this year for the rest of the year. How scared are you of Minnesota? Remember, they still have a very easy schedule ahead of themselves. They're 2 games obviously behind the Lions. Do they have a shot with Josh Dobbs as the quarterback?
No, I'm going to go with the no. They're kind of, it's like different. The other teams in the NFC North are at different stages of the grieving process. The Packers are done. They're like, all right, we're done. We're gonna go ahead and pack this in. And then the Vikings are like, we have a shot. The Bears are just doing the Bears. They're just doing Bears things.
The Bears are just chaos. I don't think chaos is one of these stages of grief, but yeah, the Vikings are definitely in bargaining at this point, right?
Right. They're trying to figure out how could we, stretch out this hope over another month or so. But I just can't. I don't know. Can you guys see Josh Dobbs being that dude in Minnesota?
I'm going to say that just from the mobility standpoint, I don't like it. Right?
Sure.
He's more of a mobile quarterback than Kirk Cousins could ever be. He's obviously not the level of passer that Kirk Cousins is and was, but here's the thing. Cousins was playing for the most part really, really well, right? This season he was kind of planting his flag as no, I am one of those guys. The team is, not what it has been in previous years. But to the Vikings credit, to Cousins credit, still had them in the hunt, right? They're on the graphic.
Sure.
They're on the graphic. But I think that it's a clear step down. And it is kind of strange though, on the same day that you trade to get a quarterback, you send away, Ezra Cleveland, who, I mean, is at least like solid offensive line depth.
Sure.
Like he's going to Jacksonville to play.
Yeah. I like Josh Dobbs a lot. I think he's an awesome guy, a really cool story, and I think he's not a horrible quarterback, but I think we have to come and admit that Kirk Cousins was the entire identity of that offense. I know we like to talk about their wide receivers. I know we like to make fun of Kirk Cousins not being able to play in big games, but he was having an outstanding season. He was playing like a top 5 quarterback. He's been a top 10 quarterback for much longer than most people are willing to admit. And this is a ginormous step down. Now, I think Kevin O'Connell is a good coach. I think he's a good offensive mind. I think they're going to have to change on the fly here, though. I think they're going to have to change who they are. They're going to have to change their offensive identity, and that's going to take time to click. And so I think they could sneak in as a wild card still. The NFC is shallow enough where I don't know if there's any teams, maybe an NFC South team that can sneak in. We assume that an NFC West team and an NFC East team will get in as 2 wild cards. That last one is probably going either to an NFC South team, a bunch of mid teams in that division, or the Vikings. And so they can sneak in, but they're not coming for the Lions this year. They just can't.
No.
Yeah, you have no Jefferson for how long? At least a while longer,
yeah.
Right? I just can't see. They would have to just construct a pretty unique and awesome offense on the fly for Dobbs to win like more than a hit, to win a bunch of games down the second half of the season, in my opinion. That's just the way I look at the Vikings.
Yeah, and for the Vikings to have a shot at the division, they have to beat the Lions twice, in my opinion.
Probably. Yeah. And that's just not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
The Vikings aren't going to catch the Lions, but you know what you can catch the Lions with?
Beef jerky.
That's right. Not just any old beef jerky, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Because the Pride of Detroit podcast is brought to you by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. That's the jerky that fuels your Detroit Lions. That's right. Righteous Felon Jerky and meat sticks are available literally at Allen Park in their training facilities. It's part of their program to get them protein. How much protein, you may ask? Well, each 2-ounce bag of jerky has 16 to 20 grams of protein. And believe me, you can pound one of those bags in a meal. That's a lot of protein. I mean, that's enough protein for a meal. 20 grams?
Yeah. Hey, why can't Kraft beef jerky be a meal? Jeremy, why can't it be?
Who's to say?
Break those social stigmas.
Listen, everyone's going to be pounding Crunch bars, Snickers bars, not enough protein. I would say fill your kid's goodie bag with Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. It's a little too late for that. But you know what? Instead of going to your CVS the day after and getting all your 50% off candy, get yourself some Righteous Felon instead. If it's good enough for your Detroit Lions, it's good enough for you.
And you can get it at a discounted rate too.
That's right. That's a great point, because guess what? We got a discount code. A coupon code, if you will. If you go into the checkout at righteousfelon.com and type in POD15, 15% off. Really good prices already. You get one of them big sampler boxes that has like 12 different flavors in it. It's like $50. You use POD15, it's less than that. I'm not going to do math live on this show.
It will be less.
It will be less.
Confirmed.
Morgan, do you have something to say?
No, I was just reaffirming it will be less.
It will be less. Oh, thank you. By the way, Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. They use locally sourced all natural Black Angus beef, and prides itself on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and those unique flavors that I was just talking about that go beyond your stereotypical jerky offering. Please go to righteousfelon.com, POD15 for 15% off. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Donovan Peoples-Jones. We'll get into the Lions-Raiders recap and talk about the future when we come back on the PODcast. Shut up, Chad. It's Bleef now.
I thought Chris was sick.
You gotta admit, I gave that read its all. I went in on it.
Honestly, I think it was really good, even with the Bleef. That shit was funny though.
You know, I believe in you.
All right.
Someone said 20% fat, 80% lean beef. Jeremy hasn't slept in a long time, guys.
I haven't. And Woodchuck Hunter has redeemed me dressing as Macho Man Randy Savage, which I thought it was going to happen. If you didn't notice, I was already in the Halloween spirit here.
Look at that.
But I guess I got to take it a step further here. Before I do so, though, I do want to get through the alerts, and then I will let Ryan and Morgan carry the show while I get into costume. Where's the belief?
Do you have trick-or-treaters?
No, not by me. We live on a pretty fast main road.
Okay. Got you. I just put the bowl out.
All right. Usually when you say a phrase like that, I think you're talking about something different.
Valid. Not for kids, though.
A.S. Carpenter, thank you for the 18-month subscribe to the channel. There's the Woodchuck Hunter Macho Man redemption. We'll do that in a minute. Alien Vivitor, 32 months, says, why be 2-6 when you can be 6-2? What a difference a year makes. Amen to that. Buckeye Hunter, Buckeye. I combined two screen names there. Buckeye in Michigan. They were the 8 months, says, I trust Brad Holmes. He knows what he's doing. 6-2 going into the bye. Go Blue. Go Buckeyes.
Ooh, clip it.
RGA, thank you. How many bits? 20 bits, says draft capital plus having to pay is not good business. We already have players that have been here that deserve an extension. That goes to what we were talking about as well. Down Tempo, thank you for the 17-month subscribe to the channel. Lions Sufferer, 11-month subscribe to the channel, says, got to take half a day off to watch and drink beer out of my vintage Lions beer mugs. Lucky I remember the game. LOL. There were a lot of people having a lot of fun last night.
Yes.
In downtown Detroit. They had, I don't know, Morgan, do they always do this? Right across from the Tin Roof Bar in that like middle park area? Have a pregame thing?
No, that was new. That was like a whole deal.
Yeah,
like,
I stopped by that for a little bit. I was hanging out with the Blevins brothers who were in town. That was wild. That was awesome. People were going nuts.
Cool.
Yeah,
I did a little shimmy through.
Yeah. Woodchuck Hunter, 100 bits, says, Amon-Ra St. Brown took 12 weeks, averaging 70% snap share to build any sort of chemistry with Goff. J-Mo's played 10 games, averaging 25% snap share. He needs more playing time. I thought, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit. I thought he played. I'm so far behind. I haven't even gotten into snap counts or anything like that.
Me neither.
But the one thing I will say is that he was in on more critical downs than he was the week before. He was in red zone a lot. He was in third down a lot. The snap count might still not be there, but that was something a little bit surprising to me because that was when they were taking him off the field the week before. So when it was third down, they're like, we don't trust J-Mo. When they're in the red zone, they're like, we don't trust J-Mo. 34.
Was his one catch a third down conversion? The one, it was like a 20-yarder, wasn't it?
It was definitely, it was. I think it was 20 yards or 21 yards or something like that. I do want to watch that play again because, as some people pointed out, he was very close to another receiver. Like I don't want to say they almost collided, but they were in the same general area, which looked weird. But at the same time, the ball was delivered right where J-Mo was, so maybe J-Mo wasn't the problem on that one, if there was a problem.
He threw that because that was from our view on the backside, like something's behind Goff, and he threw that early. I was like, okay. I was just happy that J-Mo was the A there and B caught it with his hands.
Yeah, that was quite possibly the most promising play of J-Mo's career. And I know, we've seen the big plays and things like that, but that was just like what Josh Reynolds does regularly, except he has that ability that if J-Mo just, if he breaks that ankle tackle, he's gone.
Peace. I thought it was a touchdown, honestly. I was like, it's 6, and some other fan was like, he was going to score there? I'm like, you must not know how fast he is.
Yeah. Captain James Kirk with the 5-bit says, I think the challenge is that trading a third-round pick is not going all in. Fair, but again, if it's a third-round pick for just a 8-game rental or 10-game rental or whatever, that's a heavy investment for a short period of time. Or it's going to be more than a third-round pick because you are going to give that man a massive extension, which then complicates how you treat the rest of your roster.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I also get the argument too that around this time last year, right? The Lions traded TJ Hawkinson and they have the Vikings 3rd round pick this year. So it's like, well, you have extra draft capital, you can do it, but
I really think part of this team's strategy is to just stay young. It's not
stay young, stay cheap.
It's not spend a ton of money on these second contracts for these guys. And it doesn't mean letting your tentpole guys go or never getting one of these high-end players in free agency or via trade, but their priority is going to be stay young, because that is that's how you keep the boat afloat.
Right. Real quick, when you draft well, right? Like, some of those guys inevitably are going to go. Like, I'm not saying it would pain me to see Derek Barnes leave, right? But
yeah,
I mean, there's always a potential that Derek Barnes could go, and guess what? Derek Barnes will give you because of what he'll fetch on the open market, compensatory selections, right? So, like, if you just keep this factory of good draft picks coming in and out, like, it's what Seattle did for a while, right?
It is, but admittedly, not the easiest strategy, right? You have to be on your draft game,
all the time,
year in, year out. But
you have to be committed to that.
Brad Holmes has been a college scout for 20 years, man, and he's shown he's pretty damn good at it so far.
That's what I'm saying, man, and that's why, like, when you hear about these teams, they're like, oh, teams like the Ravens and the Packers and like so on and so forth, they don't really make big splashes in free agency. Because they draft well all the time. Right. And they're like, we're not going to pay someone else. We know our guys, we're going to pay them and just keep it moving. So I don't know, something I think about.
I don't think the Eagles made a trade at the deadline year. How'd that work out? They got to the Super Bowl. What are you talking about? They almost won the Super Bowl.
No, I think that's like.
Oh, is that in their favor?
I think they're pointing that out.
Okay.
I think they're on the other side.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to get defensive on you, Junk Trunk, but like, yeah.
Junk Trunk, let us know.
I mean, the Raven, and that's the thing too, is I feel like sometimes people are so narrow-sighted that they don't realize that. I mean, first of all, there's only a handful of high-end guys that go around every year, which means not every team in competition for one of them is going to get them. But did you hear a peep out of Dallas today? Did you hear a peep out of Baltimore today? The Steelers? You know, these franchises, I mean, maybe including Dallas is in these iconic franchises is not, I shouldn't, but
yeah,
I don't know. To me, I don't quite get it. That people are I do get it, because one, you're excited because the Lions are competitive.
Yeah.
Two, you're impatient because this is the first time the Lions have looked legitimately competitive since at least 2011. Before that, we're talking 3 decades. But I mean, I don't know. People see a 3rd round pick and they're like, "Oh, that's nothing. Let's just give that up."
And I also, like, I can't buy the notion too that Brad Holmes doesn't take big swings, right? Because did you guys pay attention last offseason, right? Like, he finally made splashy moves, right? Like, he paid for Cam Sutton. He was able to get CJ here. But, like, it goes back to what you said, Jeremy. Like, the guys that they want to get, you have to think about, like, what their priorities are when they're drafting, right? Like, they have a type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we've sussed out, like, they have a type of whatever kind of criteria you want to say, but like, they're football players, right? And if like that speaks to what Brad Holmes was saying, right? Like, hey, you cut on the film, some of these guys aren't necessarily the name that they are around the league,
right?
Like, Josh Paschal, it's a Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell guy, right?
Yep.
Like, not the sexiest name, but again, Aleem McNeil, same thing. Like, that guy's having a coming out party right now. He's a 3rd round pick.
Yep.
I think Aleem is sexy, personally.
I wouldn't blame you one bit. I'm not body shaming by any means.
The other thing too that I feel like needs to be underlined, especially with this regime and the way they treat the roster, if you're coming in at this point in the season, they're gonna ease you in, right? They're not going to be like, okay, you're starting, you're gonna get 80% of the snaps for us now. Like, Donovan Peoples-Jones is not gonna come out and play 60 snaps on, well, whatever, in LA, right?
Yeah, and coming out of the bye. I mean, I don't see that happening at all.
And that's not just a Lions thing. It takes a while to adjust to your new team, adjust to a new scheme, and you hope the guy that you get is able to do that quickly. You hope that your scheme is similar to what they were doing. But again, like, that's how thorough the Lions draft, this process for the Lions is. They want to make sure all of that is set up. They want to make sure that if you're getting a Montez Sweat, he's going to fit exactly in this specific role, in this, with this guy to his left, with this guy to his right. Like, all of that has to line up. And I'm not so sure every other team is doing that due diligence. I'm not so sure the Chicago Bears have an exact role in mind for them and know for certain he's going to fit exactly. I kind of think at that point they're like, ooh, name, look at all those sacks, look at that PFF score, gimme. And
about Chase Claypool, Jeremy?
Right. That's like, yeah. I mean, but that is a perfect example, right? You don't do the character evaluation on a guy like that, you screw yourself. And so Chicago has not earned that benefit of the doubt that they did their due diligence to bring in a guy that they know is going to fit exactly what they want. The Lions have earned that faith that if they didn't get a guy, maybe you should trust them that they didn't.
Yeah. I don't know. I like, again, just seeing stuff in the chat, and it's like, I don't know how you can say Levi Onwuzurike was also a big swing and a big miss. He was a second-round draft pick. Like, also, like, I would rather have Brad Holmes swing and miss in the draft than swing and miss on a trade where he's trading the draft capital for a player that you would potentially have to pay, or you fall flat on your face and then you don't even get the draft pick.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's an opportunity cost to it, and I think that, like, the overall point is, right, like, we've seen what Brad Holmes has been able to do, right? Like, why would we take that away from him? Why would we take away those dart throws? Like, we talk about it every single year with trade back, yeah. Right? Like, you want to have as many dart throws as possible. So why trade him away if you have a 3-year track record of a guy doing well in the draft?
Right. And look, and none of us are going to sit here and say Brad Holmes is perfect. He's not. I mean, Jamo looks like a big mistake. Levi might have been a mistake. Pascal still needs to prove a lot. There are errors on his record, and so I'm not sitting here saying you can't say Brad Holmes should have done this. The Brad Holmes should have done. You can have those opinions. He might be wrong about some of these guys, but his hit rate is definitely in the higher tier. I mean, and people are noticing, right? Who was it? Albert Breer that was saying, like, look at all these rookies that are playing for this 6-2 Lions team. And he didn't even mention Colby Sorsdal.
Yeah.
No GM is perfect. That's the main thing you got to remember. Like, and look at his hit rate. Like, I was already thinking, to be honest, this is just something that just dawned on me like the last day or two, and one of my friends has brought it up before. There might be a world where Jonah Jackson walks, man, and the Lions get a comp pick, because are we ready to pay Jonah Jackson when everyone else is paid on that line?
Yeah.
Decker paid, Frank paid, Sewell about to be paid with a capital P. So, like, if Jonah can walk and you get a comp pick and you plug in Colby at left guard, shoot, that's money that can be reallocated elsewhere. So that's the way that I feel like that's how you have to start, like, looking at things as a fan, is you look at things like long-term, short-term for sure, but also, a couple years down the line. Yep.
All right, let me get back to some of these alerts real quick. Shazak. There we go. Thank you for the 17-month subscribe channel. Says, let's get our O-line back healthy. Yeah, I'm thinking the Lions might be able to come into Los Angeles with their full crew. The question is, what do they do with their full crew? I think that becomes an interesting conversation, particularly at right guard. Although maybe it isn't even a conversation at this point. Maybe Graham has just proven that he's that dude.
Yeah, Graham's that guy.
I think so, man. I think Graham, like, if you're healthy, it's Jonah, Frank, and Graham.
Yeah,
from left to right.
And it's also the thing with Hal, right? Like, when it's the back,
right?
Like, that's
yeah. And Dan was asked about it last night, or was it today? I mean, clearly my days and hours are running together.
For sure, over the past 24 hours.
But yes, for sure, over the past 24 hours, he was asking. He was just like, he was not feeling good. He was not feeling good, which is weird because I'm pretty sure he was on like special teams, which is like, all right, well, if a guy's not feeling good, why would you put him on special teams? But I guess you just need the body at that point.
Yes.
Yeah. Either way, yeah. I'm either going to write something about Graham or we're going to dedicate an entire podcast to Graham or something, because that has been maybe the best offseason signing. And that's saying a lot because Cam Sutton was an offseason signing.
Yeah. Wasn't a guarantee to make the roster, though.
Yeah, I remember. Has Graham started at every position already?
I believe he has.
In the interior, sorry.
Yeah. I think left, right, and center. I believe he has.
Damn, son. That's crazy.
Yeah.
He's that dude.
Yeah, he certainly is. Captain James Kirk, 1-bit says, I'm not saying that Chase Young is a difference maker at all. For all we know, he would have been a terrible fit in the locker room. Yeah, we don't know that sort of stuff. It's yeah. Shmeevan, thank you for the 8 months subscribe to the channel. Harry Be Bad, 43 months subscribe to the channel, says J Rice Munn. Okay, I'll take it. MCDC Forever, 6 months subscribe to the channel, says Kings of the North. Woodchuck Hunter a bit says, where's Macho Man? I almost forgot about it. I'll get to it. Chrissy, we'll just call you Chrissy. That's a very long name, but I see UK Lions fan in there. So Chrissy, UK Lions fan, 24 months, 2 years. Subscribe to the channel, says, love those helmets. Nearly my era. 40, I mean, yeah. I think maybe a little bit before. Captain James Kirk, another bit, says, I see what Ryan is saying. They should have traded a 2 for Leighton Vander Esch.
Oh, yeah.
And Woodchuck Hunter, another 100 bits, says, Jeremy, I have to go to bed soon. Could you refund Macho Man, and I'll do it the next man soon. Okay. Sorry, Woodchuck. Sorry for taking so long, but yeah, we'll refund you. And sorry, everyone else who's waiting for that. Also, I should say, on YouTube, we got a super chat, £2? Euros? I'm not sure. I don't know what the symbol means, but from Damian Smith says, thoughts on seeding scenarios in DC's comments. All right, let's talk a little playoff, boys. Lions.
Could this just be part of the third segment?
Maybe. But, it was a super chat, so we can talk a little bit about it now.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah.
So the Lions currently hold the 2nd seed. The Seahawks can jump them next week. I don't remember who they have, but I think it's a difficult game. But they're 5-2 to the Lions 6-2, and obviously they hold the tiebreaker over the Lions. Now, here's the thing. I think that 2 seed is going to be very valuable this year. In fact, I would almost prefer the 2 to the 1. Because I really want the Lions to win a playoff game. And getting a bye means that their first playoff game is going to be more difficult than theoretically it means, the divisional round is tougher than the wild card round. That's just
sure. Yeah.
Seahawks are in Baltimore, by the way.
Baltimore. Okay, yeah. So there you go. Tough matchup for the Seahawks. But to me, I think the 7 seed is going to suck. I'm just looking at the teams. To me, it's very the top 6 teams to me are clear as day. It's the Seahawks and the 49ers in the West. It's the Lions. It's the Cowboys and the Eagles. And who am I forgetting? And whoever wins the South. Don't care. 6
Probably
teams
gonna be
there.
The Saints. Did you see Grady Jarrett done for the season?
Yeah, that sucks.
That's a big loss for them.
Yeah, and then that 7 seed is either a mid NFC North, NFC South team, the Vikings,
Bucks. Yeah,
or the Rams. I mean, I don't know. Who are you even talking about?
It can't be the Rams at this point, right? Not with the Stafford injury, and
probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
who do y'all think's gonna win the NFC South? That's the Saints.
I guess
the Saints by default.
That is deplorable. That's a terrible division.
It can't. It can't be the Commanders though. Now they just traded away 2 of their best players on defense.
Yeah. No, the commies are definitely in tank mode.
So this is my point.
They played the Eagles so hard.
Yeah,
they've already played the Eagles twice this year. They played them so hard. And
I don't know.
I was kind of surprised Jonathan Allen didn't get traded, but
he's nice too. Yeah, he was so angry recently. Remember, he was cussing a bunch.
Just give a 6 for Kendall Fuller. That's what I wanted.
I mean, to Ryan's point though, that's why no corners are available. Like the one that he made way earlier about really good defensive ends aren't going to be on the market because you keep those players. So it's the same.
Yeah.
I'm sure
what were the Bears asking? What were the Bears asking for Jalen Johnson?
It had to be at least a first.
Something stupid.
It had to be at least a first.
Nope.
Look at what Rasul went for, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy, and he's older, isn't he? How old is Rasul Douglas?
What they got a third and
Third and a fifth.
They
sent
third, but
they
the
sent a
Packers
fifth.
sent a fifth. Yeah.
So a little bit less than a third.
Rasul's 28. I guess that's not.
But anyways, to the original point, we have no idea who that 7th seed is, but can we all agree that those other 6 teams are
about as close to locks as possible?
Right. Yeah. And so that's why the 2 seed to me is like the sweet spot for this team. And that should be the goal. And obviously you want to be the 1 seed. You want home field advantage because we're not just talking about if you're aiming for the 2nd seed, it's not just about winning a playoff game, right? You're thinking at least NFC Championship game. You're thinking obviously you can make a Super Bowl run if you're the 2 seed in your division, in your conference. But if you want to just get if you're the kind of person that's just like, please just give this team a franchise, just give this franchise a second playoff win in the Super Bowl era, I think the 2 is your sweet spot.
I get that logic.
Fair. Someone redeemed the cowboy hat, by the way, Jeremy.
Okay.
Dang.
Can we do mini cowboy hat so that I don't have to kind of do that?
Is that a Woody hat?
Sure.
Where'd you find it?
I got sent a whole bag of them.
For why?
Because that's what our weird live audience wants. And we have a P.O. box for them to send us stuff.
You can send mini cowboy hats or straight to DVD films starring Steven Seagal.
That's right.
Jeremy loves those.
You know what? I still haven't watched that.
What?
Someone literally sent me a weird Steven Seagal movie that no one has ever heard of.
I thought you just said that randomly.
No,
Ryan.
that's a real thing.
No, that was real. That was like one of the first things we got.
All right. We have a choice right now. I think I know what my option is. One option is to jump into the second segment, start talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones and the Raiders game. Yeah. 2 is that calls of the game just dropped. We could watch calls of the game together. Those are generally only about 4 or 5 minutes. We can jump into that. We can save that for the second break and keep people on the edge. What do you guys think?
They've been asking for it for a minute, so I don't know. Should we make them wait longer?
Yeah, I think they should wait longer. Let's go to the next
For real?
break. Yeah.
Oh, Ryan's all about tantric podcasting.
Well, you're the one who... Nope, not even going to say it. There it is. Well, you can read Duck Lions comment.
Yeah. That's me? That's you.
No, you're the one who said... You're the one who said edge of the seat.
We're not doing Macho Man. That got refunded because I keep forgetting people's names. But the person who redeemed it has to bounce here.
Indigo, don't you dare turn on me. Like Woodchuck Hunter. Woodchuck Hunter's like, please, next segment.
All right, next segment. We're doing it. Sorry, chat.
Okay.
Yell at Ryan. You know what?
Yell at me.
You can get back at him next week when you guys can start donating for mutes and just mute Ryan for as long as you want. Because here's the thing. We upped it. It's not just mute for 1 minute now. It's mute for 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Making love for 2 minutes.
Thank you for catching up. We can do that starting tomorrow. Yes, you'll be able to donate to our Movember campaign. I don't remember what the amount is to mute a host, but that will be an option.
Those will come in handy, especially because they do stack. They do not expire.
Yes. Well, I don't like that because I don't keep track of them. But we were going to start Movember tonight, but it's been an insane 24 hours, and I am way behind. So I wasn't able to get the post up on the website. I'm also chasing people down to see what they're able to donate to the cause, and I'm mostly settled at this point. But long story short, I wasn't able to do it in time. As much as I wanted to get it kicked off tonight, but I couldn't. Anyways. All right, we're getting back into segment 2 here. Give me a second. That's on you, Flint Town. Or are you just lying? You're just lying. And we are back here on the POD cast. I almost said first bite because I'm so used to do that. But we talked a lot about what the Lions didn't do at the trade deadline on the first segment. Let's talk about the one thing that they did do. We talked about it a little bit, but let's talk more of Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think we understand why the Lions made the move. We covered that. You know, they need a guy that they can trust now that Marvin Jones is gone. Need an extra body there that can also provide on special teams. But let's talk about the player himself and what you guys think of Donovan Peoples-Jones. Did the Lions get good value in a 2025 sixth-round pick, which is essentially not that much. But Ryan, I'll throw it to you first. Like, what are your thoughts on Donovan Peoples-Jones? Is he a good fit? What do you expect out of him? Is this kind of a situation where maybe the Lions got a little bit more than the bang for their buck here?
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up. Is you have a player who's coming into this team who people had expectations for bigger names, right? And then you get Donovan Peoples-Jones, and it almost seems like a bit of a letdown.
Sure.
But I think that going back and looking through some of the advanced numbers for him as a wide receiver, a few things I really like, right? Like he can play in the slot. He can be a big body slot receiver, so he has the versatility. Obviously, the Lions are going to covet him because of his ability to line up out wide. The thing that I really like about him is that he's a downfield target who's all about contested catches. In 2021, he actually ranked 5th in contested catch rate amongst all NFL wide receivers, which is pretty darn impressive, if you ask me. Yeah. The other thing, too, though, in 2021, he was 4th among receivers in ADOT. So, like, he's a guy who gets targeted downfield.
Yeah.
Again, like if you want an offense to create some explosive plays, why not go out and get a guy who can make those happen? I've seen other things said about him too, right? Like they really like his willingness to be a run blocker, and he kind of does like all the little things. Oh, shocker! Like this is the guy that the Lions were interested in actually pulling the trigger on making a deal. So. Yeah, those are my initial impressions. I love that he's a downfield threat. I love that he's a contested catch guy. Again, those are numbers from 2021. What has kind of gone awry a little bit? Is it quarterback play in Cleveland? Is it, all these other things? There could be a lot of factors going on. So maybe the Lions, maybe this isn't a Trinity Benson situation is what I'm trying to say.
Well, right. And I mean, he has an 800-yard season under his belt. So it's definitely not a Trinity Benson situation. But yeah, I think it's fair to at least be a little bit concerned given everything that's going around in Cleveland. Maybe you just give a complete pass, but he only has 8 catches for 97 yards this year in 7 game appearances, 5 starts. That's bad. I mean, that's Marvin Jones numbers, which, that's the guy he is definitely essentially filling his role. So, but I don't know, Morgan, what are your thoughts on him? I don't know if you've gotten a chance to do a deep dive on him at all yet, but where do you like his fit? Maybe where do you think maybe you're underwhelmed if there is somewhere?
I agree with everything that Ryan brought up. Like he does everything well, like that a lot of these guys in the Lions organization like covet, right? So I'm sure Brad Holmes has, scouted Donovan Peoples-Jones dating back to his days at Michigan, right? And a lot of Detroiters in Michigan, people are going to be familiar with him, played at Cass Tech. So he's a local kid. He does everything. He can play special teams because I don't think he's going to come in and see like a big chunk of the snap share. I'm not sure what you guys think in that regard, but I think it's just another body that they have in case something were to happen, like we talked about before we got on. I'm fine with it. I guess underwhelmed. I know we brought it up a little bit earlier. I know it would have been nice to add an outside corner to that, just to bolster the ranks there. But yeah, otherwise I'm good with the trade.
Yeah, and I think it has a chance to have some sneaky upside, right? If this is a guy that's capable of a 60-catch, 800-yard season, he's capable of doing it again under a really good offensive coordinator and a much better quarterback than he's probably played with. And so, I'm not necessarily saying it's a Josh Reynolds type of move, because Josh Reynolds obviously had that built-in chemistry with Jared Goff, and that's the thing that I think is going to take the longest for Donovan Peoples-Jones to get going on offense. But it's a guy that is capable. He's got all the grittiness that Ryan outlined, and it's the last year of his contract, but he the next 10 games are a tryout for him to get re-signed. And listen, the Lions reward guys that work hard and go at it, and if he does all of the right things, it would not surprise me at all for the Lions to re-sign him to a very affordable deal. And maybe he eventually does become kind of the Josh Reynolds when Josh Reynolds' course on this team is gone. I mean, he's a young player. He's a guy that has talent. He's a guy that has production in this league. You take a 6th-round flyer on a guy that might not contribute that much this year except for special teams and might down the road become a 2 or 3. I'm cool with that.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. I'm on board.
All right, let's switch gears here. Let's time travel 24 hours back in time. Talk a little bit about the Monday Night Football game. Chris did a great job breaking it down on our kind of quick reactions podcast last night. But let's talk about it, us three here, because kind of an interesting game. The way I keep saying it is this was a game that Lions fans wanted blood, I think. After the Ravens game, you want to take out your frustration on the team, and everyone knew that this was not a good Raiders team, and they just wanted an absolute blowout. They wanted them to take them rail to rail. And I guess my question to you guys was that the sacrifice that Lions fan did the Lions get their team sacrifice that they were looking for, or was that a little bit of a letdown for either of you guys?
I don't think it was a letdown. I think the Lions dominated that game from the jump. Like, they got on them, minus that one drive that the Raiders had where they ran the ball surprisingly well all of a sudden, where they haven't all year. I don't know what got into them there. It's like they got some superpowers for a second. But I think the Lions fans should feel pretty satiated, to be honest. Like, the crowd was buzzing last night. It was loud in there. But I think they got it just sprinkled with some turnovers, some really bad turnovers that we'll, for sure get into.
Yeah, I think to Morgan's point, like, that was probably the point of uneasiness that really shook me, was the way that, and Jeremy, you pointed it out on Twitter, but like, seemed just like Las Vegas was controlling the line of scrimmage on offense and defense there for a hot second, right? Yeah. And like, the Raiders just kind of methodically moved down the field. To Morgan's point about, Josh Jacobs all of a sudden is, 2022 Josh Jacobs, and Raiders are moving people and the game's close. Oh man, we might have a little bit of a football game on our hands. And then Jimmy Garoppolo decided to continue putting up worse numbers than Jamarcus Russell in his first, set of games with the Raiders. But yeah, I think there was a bit too, Jeremy, of this kind of perfect storm that happened where I think there were a lot of people that were kind of underwhelmed with the way that the Lions weren't just piling on the points, right? And they weren't absolutely dominating the way that people were hoping that they would. And then that led into today. That was part of the perfect storm of like, okay, the Lions aren't perfect. They need to make a trade because that game wasn't as dominant as it needed to be. And you had this perfect storm of, hey, here's
insecurities. Just insecurities tacking on top of insecurities. You got the Baltimore game, you got the Raiders game that wasn't what it should have been, and now you got the trade deadline. It's insecurity. Like, you're building a mountain of insecurity among some Lions fans here.
100%. And it's just like 97 ones, like nom 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 nom.
Nope. Exactly. And to that point, that game would have been a blowout had the Lions scored a touchdown on 2 of the 3 possessions they settled for field goals on.
Right.
Or had not thrown a pick 6 there and gotten 3 or 7, because that's a 7-point swing. Just little things like that. Had Josh Reynolds not put the ball on the ground, that easily could have been a Packers game where the Lions won 44-7 or 44-10. So football is just a fickle game like that. That's what I would point to. The Lions dominated that. Look at every other metric besides that one little stretch that we highlighted, Ryan. Like, the Lions offensive line, like, Jahmyr Gibbs played a great game, but with a patchwork interior offensive line, the Lions line dominated the Raiders front, man. They were resetting that line of scrimmage, giving Jahmyr cutback lanes galore, and that man is fast. My God. So, yeah, that was fun to watch.
And the Lions did the one thing that they didn't do in the Ravens game, which was respond to adversity, right? Nope. Against the Ravens, it spiraled out of control. One thing
in a hurry.
Yes.
Josh Reynolds fumbles the ball. What happens on the very next play?
Yep.
Kirby Joseph pick. Yep, Kirby Joseph pick. The Lions
end zone.
The Lions get a pick 6. The next drive they go all the way down the field and then fumble. But then what happens after that? The Raiders barely get out of their own end zone. The Lions take that. and then I believe they score in the next drive. What happens when the Raiders have their one offensive successful drive? The Lions have probably their best offensive drive of the season and an absolute statement, huge touchdown drive to end the half. That was humongous in that game. And so we've seen them do that before. I believe they did that against the Chiefs, the very first game of the season. There were some times where you hit a bump in the road and you're like, uh-oh, is this where the game is going to fly out of control and the Lions are going to lose? Nope, they bounce back. Brian Branch makes the play. I mean, to me, it's just that's a sign of a steady football team, a mentally strong football team, and a football team that's just better than you. It's just better than their opponents because in the end, when you have fluke plays happen, whether they're turnovers, whether they're penalties, whether they're missed field goals from 26 yards out, in the end, a good football team is still going to beat a bad football team. As long as the turnover margin isn't like 3 or higher, and it was 2 in this game, the better football team is still generally going to win. And it was very clear to me, very clear to anybody watching the game, just looking at the yardage stats. The Lions were a much better football team. And to me, the mistakes were so uncharacteristic of this team that they don't worry me. Josh Reynolds had 2 career fumbles in his entire career. Uncharacteristic.
Craig Reynolds was down.
He was, man. He was down.
And Jared Goff, yes, he makes mistakes under pressure. I don't think he makes a mistake like that very often.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out whether or not it was to the sideline for a throwaway or if there was a miscommunication with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And even if there was, I think it was just very clear that Jared Goff did not see Marcus Peters.
Yeah.
No, that he was in the end zone opposite us, but just from our vantage point, it looked like he was just trying to make, like, he does such a good job of killing it, like just throwing it in the dirt.
Yes. That's been something he's been so good about this year, which is why that play was so shocking to me, is that he is an expert at intentionally grounding without intentionally grounding this year.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, maybe he got word, and Jeremy, you didn't see the ESPN or the broadcast, but like they were big on the early ball that went just over Jahmyr Gibbs' head on the first drive, and they're like, oh, like they brought in the NFL VP of officiating or whatever.
I heard they were really hammering home on calling an intentional grounding that wasn't called.
Yeah, but the VP came on and was like, nope, there's a receiver like in the air. Like Jahmyr Gibbs, yes, he is blocking, but like that's a receiver, and it's like, okay, maybe you might be like kind of trying to save face here for your officials and stuff, but like to your point, yeah, Jared has just been like really good with that stuff, and it felt like I guess the point I wanted to point out too is like the Lions never panicked, right? Like in terms of responding to adversity, but this was a game that years ago, right? Like, I mean, even 2 years ago, even under the Dan Campbell era, right? Yeah. Like this is a team that has like talent that could get them over the hump because, to your point, they just are a better football team.
Yeah,
like.
They never trailed in this game.
They didn't have the talent. Right. They never trailed, right? But it certainly felt like they were close to losing that for a second.
It was a 2-point game.
And then poof.
Yeah.
Right?
That was over.
Yeah.
It's been cool to see them weather storms. Like in the stadium, there was a moment of like unsure. Like, I don't know if you felt it, Jeremy, where you're at, but like after the pick 6, we're like, oh man. But then also like now they've kind of been through several of these storms now, and they just have shown that they can make it on the other side most of the time. Like, okay, we'll make some plays. Even, Craig goes down and fumbles it after that nice drive, and you're like, come on, man. But then they just kind of kept the gas on and were able to put it away. So it's been impressive to see them come like weather some of that stuff, because it's going to happen.
Right.
It's the NFL.
Right. 100%. That's what separates bad teams from good ones is when the adversity hits, you're going to stay level. You're going to continue to push. You're going to continue to win every down from there. And that's what they continue to do. Can
I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. So, and I know you haven't had the privilege of getting a second watch on the game. And I know everybody who is at home, right, we have the benefit of seeing replay, but like, I want to ask you about, what do you think of Ben Johnson and his play calling? Yeah. Specifically in the red zone.
I think there's work to do. I do. And if you're a POD direct subscriber, you read Brett Whitefield very highly praising Ben Johnson for this game. And I think there are some interesting things he said. And there is an argument to be made that we get spoiled in the city with trick plays. And so when they don't work, we get extra mad because they look so good when they work. But I'm going to tell you, when it's 2nd and 1 in the red zone, I don't need to see cutesy stuff. I don't care how wide open Khalif Raymond was when Amon-Ra had the ball in his hands. You're putting the ball in Amon-Ra's hands. You're asking a wide receiver to make a quarterback read. There is an inherent risk in that, so that even if everything else in the play works well, you have the ball in Amon-Ra's hand. You have the guy who has the flu, the guy who's been drinking Vernon's, making a joke there, all day, and drinking chicken noodle soup, and is in a fever pitch. You're asking him to make a read. Yeah, he's going to make a mistake. That's why teams don't do that every play. And so there's unnecessary risks here and there. The goal line or red zone draw plays or what. I think we got a little on Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson in the middle of that 2-minute drill at the end of the half because it actually worked out perfectly. I think you look kind of at the whole scope of that. They burned a lot of clock, even though it was frustrating to see them run a couple draw plays and seemingly just burn plays and burn time. That actually worked out perfectly. So I think obviously a lot of people were upset in the moment. I was one of those people. I think you sit on it a little bit longer, you understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, in the red zone, the thing is with the red zone is they clearly miss David Montgomery. They're trying to figure out what their identity in the red zone is right now because they don't have David Montgomery. And for as good as Jahmyr Gibbs was on Monday night, he's still not your goal line back. That's just not what he's ever going to be. He can run between the tackles, but I don't know if he can run for power. And I don't know if Craig Reynolds can run for power. And I don't know anything about Divine Ezigbo. And so they're still figuring it out. It's a shame that basically every person that could be a perceivable backup to David Montgomery has gone down with a serious injury so far. But I think maybe that's what you saw on Monday night that was super frustrating is they don't know what their identity is in the red zone without David Montgomery, and they're trying everything.
Yeah, and I think the discussion's different if Saint just makes that pass to Khalif. But again, like you said, it's a lot to put on him in that situation. So, yeah, I do hope they get some solutions ironed out over the course of the bye because the Reds, for so long, like they were really, really efficient and good in the red zone. Like, okay, like we felt good when they got down around in the low red. We're like, they're going to score. Yeah. And a lot of that, like you said, Jeremy, was due to David Montgomery and the offensive line just imposing their will on people.
One other highlight that I want to point out, this was one of my big takeaways was, man, good job. And he got the game ball, right? And it's Aaron Glenn. You know, he gives the game ball to Jerry Jacobs and to Cam Sutton. But, like, I really thought that Dan was spot on in giving him the game ball for this reason. An adjustment. Right. And I know it's not a mobile quarterback, right? But this is a Lions team that does not blitz. Like, they just don't blitz. Like, it's not part of who they are. They don't want to do it. They want to send 4 guys. They want to generate pressure with those 4. And, hey, trust me, we're going to have enough guys back to make a play if you try to make one. They just didn't give Jimmy G the opportunity to even do that because they knew that if they pressured him, if they got, defenders in his face, he was going to sail passes to Devontae Adams. Like, I get it, right? The optics of seeing a ball sail over and open Devontae Adams is like, oh my gosh, like that could have been that.
Right.
Well, guess what? It wasn't that because Jimmy G could make that throw if he didn't have Aiden Hutchinson in his face mask, right?
Or fearful of it, right? Like sometimes he didn't, but when you get pressured on 20 of 27 dropbacks or whatever it was, suddenly you start seeing ghosts.
Ooh, there it is. Perfect.
It's something you don't really see when you're like watching the live broadcast, but when you're there, like he was getting blasted like several different times. Yeah. I would look at people in my section like Sweta or whoever, and we'd be like, ooh, because there was like a couple times where I'm like, man, he might be tapping out here in a little bit because he was taking some shots, some good legal ones too.
Dude, even on that first drive, right? Like he tries to take off on that 3rd and long, and he dives, and Anzalone hits him in the back, and you saw
Jack Campbell.
That Jack Campbell, like with the stability of a baby deer going through.
I know, man.
Like,
oh boy, now you're conjuring Jared Davis imagery right now.
Oh man, no, Jared Davis was a dog chasing cars.
But I want to stick with Jack Campbell for a second because you talked about Aaron Glenn changing his philosophy, being adaptable. Jack Campbell's a perfect example of that because I was on this mic last week saying I don't get why Jack Campbell is an edge guy. I don't see it. It's not playing to his strength. It's not playing to your team's strength because Jack Campbell is a better off-ball linebacker. He's a better guy in coverage. He's not good at pass rush. He hasn't done it, and maybe you want to build that skill in him. And so what do they do this week? Purely off-ball. Purely off-ball.
Started, too.
He started.
Start.
And I think it shocked. And what was their solution to their edge guy? It was Julian Okwara. And Julian Okwara has 2 sacks in 3 games, y'all. I'm not saying he's fantastic. I'm not saying he's the answer to this Sam linebacker role, but he's a hell of a better answer than Jack Campbell is. He just is. I'm sorry. And if that means you have to scale Jack's playing time, so be it. If that means he has to cut more into Derek Barnes' playing time, so be it. You need your best players in their best spot. They weren't putting Jack Campbell in his best spot to succeed. I commend them for trying something different. I commend them for putting a player they believe in a place where they thought it could work. But I also commend them for saying, didn't work. Now, listen, maybe this was a game plan thing. Maybe this was, we don't think it's good for this week. We're going to try again next week. I hope it isn't, personally, but I commend them for at least changing it up for a game and clearly being better for it. All right. I think we're going to take a break there. We might top off a little bit more of the Raiders game in the top of the next segment. I know we're kind of mixing topics in the middle of segments, but we are definitely going to close things out by looking forward, bye week ahead. But what does this mean for the Lions going forward, now being 6-2? How high can the hopes be? How big of a mistake was it for them not to add another player to be at the top of the NFC? And a whole lot more coming on the final segment of the PODcast. We will be right back.
All right, let's give the people what they want. Let's just go right into it.
Go right into it. All right, we are going to watch Sounds of the Game.
Different than Calls of the Game.
Shoot. Calls of the Game we were watching, not Sounds of the Game.
Sounds of the Game's great, too. Yo, didn't Jack have a good hit on Jimmy, too?
Well, he had the illegal one.
Which one?
It was right after the squib.
Oh,
kick.
shoot. That was he kind of got blocked into it too.
Yeah.
That was kind of a crappy. He hit someone in pursuit though. He hit Garoppolo hard in pursuit on the edge.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Like banged him out of bounds. I was like, ooh, Jimmy, that didn't look like it felt good.
Dude, there was that one. I can't remember if it was a reception or a run. I feel like it was a reception by Craig Reynolds where he I just remember tweeting immediately after, dude, he runs angry.
Right?
He runs he's just a mean football player with bad intentions on the football field.
I love it too. Got some hate in his heart.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Share sound. Give me. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Don't worry, Chad. I'll let you see too. There you go. All right, here we go. 3-minute, 44-second Sounds of the Game, Monday Night Football. Here we go.
Garoppolo takes the snap back and looking, pumping, throwing downfield. Picked up by the Lions. That is intercepted in the end zone. Coming back up the left sideline is Kirby Joseph. Joseph back to the 11-yard line where he is taken down by Hunter Renfrow. A takeaway by the Raiders, and they give it right back to the Lions. Goff turns. Wants to throw, sets in the pocket, throws deep middle, caught Amon-Ra, 40-yard line, cuts to the sideline, 45-50, into Raider territory, inside the 40-yard line, and runs out of bounds to the 34-yard line. That time, Goff with a dart, Amon-Ra ran through it, crossed the middle, turned it upfield, 44 yards. 1st and 10 from the 18 of the Raiders. Goff's going to work out of the gun. He's got Gibbs to his right. Goff takes the snap back and looking, wants to throw, does, deep middle, caught, Laporta, inside the 5, to the end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions! Oh baby, Goff with a laser, 87 hauled it in, and the Lions find the house for the first time tonight. Amir Abdullah in the game at running back, Garoppolo takes the shotgun snap back, looking, gonna get hit, gonna go down, sacked back at the 30-yard line. That defense got him, Julian Okwara with a sack. Jared leans in, takes the snap, wants to hand off to Gibbs. There he goes left side across the 50-yard line into Raider territory. Spins out of a tackle inside the 40, inside the 35, still going down to the 32-yard line. What a run by Gibbs!
I feel like there's like 5
Takes the snap,
Gibbs runs that I forgot about.
Bounces through a hole. There it goes outside 20.
So
Gibbs 15. Gibbs 10. Angling to the
Got
end
so
zone.
skinny there.
Touchdown,
Yep.
So
Detroit
skinny.
Lions. Oh, baby,
If
what
you haven't
a
seen the
run.
Dano breakdown
What a
of that
run.
play, it's really good. Dan Orlovsky.
27 yards. Got skinny, went through the line, and made it to the house.
Got
Man,
skinny.
I think he might have did it for number 20. That looked a little
That
bit,
looked
just
a little
bad
bit.
big like him.
Barry Sanders in
Yes,
the booth.
sir.
Jahmyr
Yes,
Gibbs
sir.
on the field. That's good stuff, man.
Oh my goodness.
Garoppolo out of the
Alright,
gun.
we don't have to
Lions
compare everyone to
across the
Barry.
front. Garoppolo takes back, looking, gonna get hit, gonna go down, sacked. Aleem McNeil got him. It's been good from 44, 31, and 33. There's the kick. It is away, it is up, and it is good.
That did get
A
10.
knuckleball
Riley
for a
Patterson
strike.
gets it across from
That was in our end zone.
52.
No way I thought that was going in.
Garoppolo works out of the
Yeah,
gun.
me neither.
There's the snap back to throw. Blitz comes. Garoppolo gonna get hit, gonna go down. Alex Anzalone got him back inside the 30-yard line. Unblocked that time. And Garoppolo basically just said, I'm going to go down right here. Amir Abdullah into the game. He's to the left of Jimmy G, who works out of the gun. There's the shotgun snap. Garoppolo back. Garoppolo looking. Gonna get hit. Gonna go down again. Aleem
Can we just watch Aleem on this play?
snap. Garoppolo back. He's to the left.
Right here.
Jimmy G, who works out of the gun. There's the shotgun snap. Garoppolo back. Garoppolo looking.
That's twinkle toes right there,
Aleem
man.
McNeil got him.
Abuse.
So light on his feet. man.
Second of the night for big number 54. And the Raiders
Good
are
Lord.
in reverse right now. Lions stacking that
He's
line.
not supposed to move like that.
They got 5 men across the front. Now they back out. They show 4. Garoppolo out of the gun. There's the snap. Garoppolo back. Garoppolo gonna get hit.
Yes, sir.
Sacked again. Alex Anzalone got
Anzalone
him.
had 2 sacks too.
Mm-hmm.
Single deep safety. Garoppolo's got it. Blitz comes. Garoppolo steps away from the pressure. Steps
I mean, look at
gonna
that.
get
How
hit,
many
gonna go down.
they sent?
Sacked again.
They sent Tracy and
Walker got
Anzalone on
him.
that play. Just completely
There,
unlike
man.
them.
As he ducks in behind center, takes the snap, takes the knee, and that's your ball game. Two teams will meet out in the middle of the field to say job well done, job better done on this night by the Detroit Lions, who win it by a score of 26-14 to run their record to 6-2 on
Crosby
the
and Huff,
season as they head
Jersey
to
swap.
bye.
Yep. There you go, chap.
I know he was unblocked a few times, but man, the burst that Max Crosby has off the line of scrimmage, like his get off is
Nasty.
real different. It's real different.
Nasty.
And I'm not trying to say this to slam on Aiden, but like when some people say Aiden is like
Not yet.
is like a top 5 edge in this league, watching Max Crosby play on Monday night is a reminder of like there's still a level
That's
that
what
he's
top
not.
5 looks like.
Yeah, that's what exactly. That's what top 5 looks like.
Against Penei Sewell consistently, right? Like, who Sewell has not given up diddly in terms of pass rush this year.
Yeah.
And Max had him a couple times, like, because I was watching that pretty intently just when I could, and woof,
Yeah.
Lord, I'm right there with you, Ryan.
And listen, like Max only had 4 pressures according to PFF, but you saw how much of an impact that dude still made. Like he was just a fucking menace in the run
It
game.
was.
Ask JMO what Max Crosby
Yeah, right.
does in the run game.
Yo, J-Mo needs to strap up, man. That helmet came popping off. Damn, that was bad though.
That was one of those plays though where Morgan, he was completely unblocked, right?
I know. I get like schematically, I understand why offenses do that, but it wasn't executed well enough.
JMO's not that fast, right? And that was
Oh.
my thing watching the game with the benefit of replay. And I know you guys were there live, but like you could just see like it was the unblocked plays where it's like, yeah, I understand the ball is going away from him, but like if you don't block him, he's fast enough to get to that guy.
Yeah.
And there was a play, Morgan, where Sam Laporta, it was 1-on-1
I saw that rep.
with Max Crosby.
Whipped him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whipped him good. Bad, man.
I appreciate you trusting your guy, but also
No, I don't. Not in that situation, man. I'm team never block We don't block defensive ends with tight ends.
Never, not in a single occasion.
We don't do.
But Jeremy, it was what I almost said Oakland, but it's what the Raiders were doing with Aiden, right? Like Aiden was getting a ton of attention.
Chipped.
Yeah.
There's just that one play of a guard who comes back and just obliterates him, which I mean, it looks bad on Aiden, but I mean, what do you? This guy literally blindsides him.
It's getting blindsided. When you spin, you expose yourself
Yeah.
to that kind of thing. So it's the same thing as jumping. You punish jumpers, you punish spinners. That's what they're taught.
To me, the thing that makes Max Crosby so unreal is the instincts, because so many times they would leave him unblocked, just assuming that no one is going to read the play and be athletic enough to chase down a play backside in the backfield.
Right.
Like Gibbs is just going to outrun that guy 99% of the time.
J-Mo's just going to outrun that guy.
Right.
No.
Not this one. Not this one.
No.
Yeah.
And so just for him to make all those plays on the opposite side of the field is something to really behold. Like it's if you can get past the thing that he's your enemy, it's actually really fun to watch a player just play a game like that.
Yeah. It's good when they're not on a good football team.
Right. When they're doing that and it's a 2-score game.
Right. Yeah. He's having that big of an impact on the game, but nobody else is doing anything.
I can't even I don't even think I know it's just a 1-game sample size, but Nick Bosa and Penei Sewell's first start in 2021 didn't give Penei that much hell.
Right.
So I'm just putting that out there. Okay. So
I mean, Penei and Decker, Jesus Christ, gave up three total pressures in this game. 3.
That's really it.
That's really it. 3.
I felt like a lot more.
Well,
a
lot of PFF credits individuals with, so like, if he's double teamed by Penei and Brock Wright, it's potentially that pressure may have been given to Brock Wright.
Yeah,
the Lions were putting okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because they were putting Brock Wright, like they weren't necessarily chipping every time, but they're at least putting a tight end in line just to widen his path to go off a little bit more. Because good God, like you said, his get off's crazy.
That's what they did on the play where Laporta was blocking him 1-on-1.
Right. And they left him. They left him that rep.
They had Brock right there, and it was like, oh no,
that's not it.
Yeah.
0.25 plus 0.25. That still doesn't equal 1. We gotta we gotta do better than that, man.
That's right.
I don't like that. I gotta go back and watch that. I'm gonna watch. My film is gonna be focused on the run game this week, just because like Sorsdal and all them blocking well.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. I'm intrigued to go back and watch Sorsdal's game in particular, because what little clips I've seen, and granted a lot of it is Brian Baldinger, gushing over a guy that he was pretty gushing over in the pre-draft process, which, listen, they were good plays, and that's, but
little victory lap-ish.
Yeah, and given the PFF grade, and PFF grade isn't the end all be all, but he was bottom 3 on the team, right? At least on the offensive side of the ball, I believe,
I think he was credited with giving up the most pressures too.
Yeah, makes me think at least some of those highlights were a bit cherry picked. But I mean, I think that's also what you would expect out of Sorsdal, right? Is the pass
start.
Right, the pass protection's probably not there, especially when you're mostly lined up very close to Max Crosby. But he's a road grader, he's a run defender, a run blocker, so that's and those are pretty much all of Baldinger's highlights are run plays. Granted that they ran the ball 42 times last night. What was it? 86 plays.
86 snaps for Colby Sorsdal, Graham Glasgow, Penei Sewell, and Taylor Decker.
That's insane. I don't know if people understand, because a lot of people probably don't look at snap counts.
I didn't realize that either.
86 is 20 is 20 more than normal. And
I mean, the Raiders only ran 46. So that makes more.
It's like a whole extra quarter of football.
It truly is. And
the Lions played the 5th quarter like you used to in Pop Warner when the kids didn't play.
Okay, that's a soft spot for me, because that's the only time I got to play.
Oh no!
Just prying open old wounds here.
Well,
with the cowboy hat, it's just killing me.
Let's say hopefully at least they didn't treat you like Matt Patricia used to treat Graham Glasgow. You weren't part of a rotation, were you?
I mean, I guess not. But here's the thing: like, okay, I was tiny as a kid. We're talking middle school here, seventh and eighth grade. I'm coming out of elementary school thinking like I'm a running back. I can juke anybody, and I was fast. And Barry Sanders was my dude. I'm like, oh, small guy who's fast and can and agile. That's me. Now
I'm Barry Sanders,
right? And here's the thing: I don't understand what a football player is and all of the strength conditioning and all that sort of stuff that goes into it. So I have no lower body strength, no upper body strength. And I'm confused as to why these guys who are also faster and more agile than me are getting reps ahead of me. And, coaches look at me, a guy whose shoulder pads weigh more than I do, and they're like, you're a safety now because no one throws the ball in middle school and you're the furthest away from the play now. You can't do as much harm when you're all the way back there. And so I played safety. I got one career tackle in the fifth and sixth quarter, and that was my entire football career.
Well,
a legendary one.
A lot of stuff makes sense now. Is all I'm gonna say. No, I'm saying the affinity for Glover Quinn.
my hatred of running backs.
Yeah.
A vendetta. It's a long-standing vendetta. That's what I thought you were getting at, to be honest with you. I was like, this is why he hates running backs so much.
Dude, we cracked the code.
I'll hate you for just fifth grade Jeremy said, I'll hate you forever.
Bunch of worthless players.
Yeah.
Just any of you. I could pick out any of you and you could do what he's doing.
I could have done it. They just never gave me a chance. Replacement level players.
Oh man.
All right,
That's really good.
Let me get to some alerts here. And we'll hang out with you guys and maybe answer some questions and stuff real quick before we're getting back into this. What do you got now, Ryan? 10? Do we need to get on our horse a little bit?
Doesn't look like it, but
I mean, we can jump right into it and finish it up.
I do appreciate you asking me with a cowboy hat on if we need to get on our horses.
That's right.
It's like sitting to the left a little bit now too, in a funny way.
It's the Dan Campbell distressed lean.
Oh yes, when he's had a long day.
Yeah,
and it's just sitting on the top of his head like this. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Slept at the facility that night. That's what I take it as. If he has
exactly what it looks like.
Slept at the facility.
I think that should be a new
emote
reward. Yeah, no, a new reward for like channel points. Like Ryan changes his hat to distress Dan Campbell.
Oh man, I hit a hard wall today in terms of productivity. I really want to write an article on that ESPN interview he did.
Oh, dude.
Like, I didn't watch that because I need to see if I DVR. Is it good? It's really good.
I mean, my god,
he's the best person in the world. He's so freaking nice and thoughtful, and I'm sorry, like I have so much respect for men who cry in public. I know that's a weird thing to say, but especially when it happens in this profession, where masculinity and toughness and bury your feelings. This is football. Like Dan is just like so true that just thinking about the 2021 and 2022 teams and the players who, the current team is standing on, is not literally, but like standing on those guys' shoulders. They built this culture. They might not have the talent that some of the guys do on their team do, that this team does, but we wouldn't have the 2023 team without guys like Jamal Williams, without guys like Deshaun Elliott. These tough, gritty guys that are decent football players, but not the players that can take this team to the next level. And just thinking about those guys, Dan is nearly weeping at how important those guys were to to where they are now. That shows a guy who cares so goddamn much that it makes you think. And I saw some national reporter say it, like, when you see this, that Dan Campbell is going to succeed. Like there is no doubt in your mind that when you have a coach that is that kind of leader, that kind of caring person, that truly, like, it's not coach speak when he says, I'm playing, I'm coaching for these guys. It doesn't, I'm not trying to get personal accolades. I'm not trying to be the best coach. I'm trying to help these guys win. Their performance means that much to me. Brockers is a great example too. Yeah, this team
that's
is
what I'm
really
doing
good
after this podcast.
It's
Watching
so good, and
that.
I am going to write an article on it just so that more people see that damn video because they should. I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it.
They said there's a bunch of stuff on the pregame like that they were like hyping the Lions up. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh yeah, no.
Was?
Well, I mean, everybody picked the Lions to win, and that's usually like the kiss of death when it comes to gambling. You never want to see that.
True.
But the one other thing I wanted to say about Dan that was so awesome, and you should definitely watch that, Morgan. The whole interview is to Jeremy's point, like I do like I can respect the hell out of a man who feels comfortable enough in his own skin to be emotional like that. But like Dan is the duality of man, because this is a guy who, I mean, was he wearing the grit hat in the interview?
Probably.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He's the guy who embodies everything that like football is, but also embraces everything that it isn't.
Yeah.
And
True. It's a great point.
Man, he's just Dan Campbell.
I have so much respect for that human being.
Yeah, he's awesome.
It's unbelievable.
You guys make a great point about the crying thing. Like, to me, I'm like, respect, because so many people are like, no, I can't do that. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I didn't have much else to say there other than, I mean, it's why that every now and then I have to like tweet out my respect for the guy. I did it the other day of just like, when I see that video of Arthur Smith in Atlanta being a total D-bag to someone asking him a legitimate question about Bijan Robinson and why that wasn't communicated, and he has to be like, oh, you don't understand football. You want to just bring up controversial stuff. Let's talk about
climate
global
change.
Climate change. It's just like, why you got to be such a D-bag? Like, that's when Dan Campbell is like, first of all, maybe he's more transparent than he should be. He's getting better about that.
He is.
But when he won't answer a question, even when he's annoyed by a question, he's so good at saying no. I'm not going to answer that in a way that is completely respectful. And it's not that it really isn't that hard. But you see almost no NFL coaches do it because they're so fucking egotistical, and that's everything Dan Campbell isn't. There is not a. It's why he cries. It's why like his emotions are always at the surface level, is because there's no ego to what he is. There's nothing. He's not trying to project anything on the screen. He just is himself, and so. When he says like, hey, I'm sorry, I know you have to ask that as a reporter, but I'm not going to answer that. He's legitimate sorry. Like, you can see him feeling bad not being able to let that reporter do his job, right? Or making
He'll do that thing
report...
where he puts his hand out and be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm sorry, Jeremy, I can't, put his hand out.
It's just, those little things to me, and I there's no way I can take it for granted having my first 3 years on the beat be Matt Patricia.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe I will grow to take that for granted. Maybe that's the direction. I hope that's the direction that NFL coaches are going. Maybe Dan Campbell is around for the next 20 years. I don't know. But
yes, and yes, please.
Right. I sure hope I don't lose sight of how special of a human being Dan Campbell is.
I wanted to just say forget it and just watch the video now, because like people are asking to watch it, and Morgan hasn't seen it, so
I'm fine with that. Listen, there are 339 people view. I'm hoping when we put it on the site we get tens of thousands.
Yeah,
because it is honestly that good. So we'll just watch it. I mean, why the hell not?
I'm ready to cry.
Amanda caught me because I started to well up a couple times.
I mean,
yeah.
I forget because they cut to, not to spoil too much of it, but they cut to him after the Vikings game in his first year.
Yeah,
I didn't realize the waterworks were going there. Like I always knew his eyes welled up, but like they're streaming.
Oh, yeah.
I cried that day. I was happy as hell. That was some happy tears.
No. I'm talking about the bad Vikings game.
No, I know. Oh,
the one he messed up.
Oh, I thought I was talking about first win Vikings game. Oh no, damn. Damn. Okay, that's in there.
That's in there.
Oh. Whoa.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I thought it was in the post. It's not in the post, so I have to scroll through my Twitter feed because someone was a hero and linked it to me.
I'm excited, chat. Now I don't have to go see if my DVR recorded all of that.
It was before everyone flipped out about the trade deadline. Was it last night? I thought it was this morning.
The trade deadline.
It seemed like the last couple days have felt like several days. I will say, like yesterday felt like a marathon.
I'm having trouble. If anyone in chat finds it, yeah, thank you, McSpearmint. I think that is probably it.
Someone said Risden Killer Cornbread. Nice name. Go for some cornbread.
Yeah, there is. Thank you, chat. I
need to
not
have
myself
some dinner.
right now. All right, we'll jump into the second segment right after this, and then
No, you're good.
I'll thank all the
we're
subscribers after that.
Just thinking about cornbread. That's all. No big deal. We can keep it going.
You guys can see that, Morgan?
Yes.
Ryan? All right.
Yeah.
Desktop for you guys.
Oh man, 3 minutes.
Lions fans have been starved for a long time, and you're giving them a big old plate to eat from. When you're out and about in Detroit, what do the fans say to you?
I get all kinds of stuff. Hey, Coach, what's going on? Coach, go get him this week. Coach, great job. Coach, go bite some kneecaps. Look, I do appreciate it, but it does make me feel a little uncomfortable. I go to the convenience store and it's like, hey, Coach. I'm like, oh, no. The fans have been unbelievable, and I know they're feeling it like we're feeling it.
It was September of 2021, and you were just getting started here. And I asked you to give me one word that would describe your locker room and the identity of that team at that time. Do you have any recollection of what that word might have been?
No, it would probably be something like gritty.
Boom. Is that the word that you would still use today?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. We're the same gritty team. We're just more talented. That's what I would say. Because the core of that group, man, you talk about a bunch of dudes that were just going to battle, and we didn't quite have the horses we got now. But those guys, you talk about laying it on the line and going toe-to-toe with anybody and willing to fight to the end. I'll never forget those guys.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What's making you emotional right now?
I just, I appreciate guys that lay it on the line. Maybe you're outnumbered, maybe you're not the most talented, and maybe the odds are against you and nobody believes in you, and I respect the hell out of those guys that'll fight, you know, and that's what we're about. That's what we're about, man. That's how we roll here. That's why I get emotional.
Can you personally relate to that?
Yeah, I mean, that was me. I didn't have talent. I mean, I had enough talent to play in the league. I was fortunate to get a number of years. But ultimately, I wanted to please my coaches. I wanted to please my teammates. Man, I didn't ever want a teammate to look at me and say, man, that guy, he doesn't do anything for us. He doesn't finish plays. He's not accountable. And I took that stuff personal. One
of my favorite moments was you at the podium in your first season after you lost to the Vikings, and you had tears in your eyes.
When you see your players give all that they have and you lose that way, it's tough.
What kind of message do you think that gives to people?
This is me, and I want my players to know this is me. When it starts to brew, I can't help it. It just, that's who I am, and it doesn't happen all the time, but there's things that'll trigger me, and I'm an emotional person. I feel things, you know, I can feel. But ultimately, whatever comes out, man, I think that's the thing here. I want to be me.
Love that, man.
I thought we were all going to get clipped as like three just grown men also crying too. Like,
thankfully, they were in a tiny little box.
Yep, y'all won't be able to see if there are tears in my eyes or not.
They're always bloodshot, anyways.
God.
Boom. For real though, that did, like, especially when he just started. I get it though, man, because you get those feelings and it's tough to slow down. But yeah, I'm just glad that the Lions are so easy to root for. I said that to somebody the other day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're good, but to all the way down, like him and Campbell and Holmes, like they're easy to root for. They're good dudes.
And isn't it? Oh, man, I feel like that's the point that needs to be underlined when I kind of express how I feel about the trade deadline. You know what I mean? It's like, this is their team, man. Like,
Yep.
And if they don't have somebody, right? Because it's not just, hey, is Chase Young a great player? Is Chase Young the kind of teammate that Dan Campbell says he never wanted to be, right? He never wanted to be the guy that anybody pointed at and said, man, that guy's dogging it, or like that guy doesn't give it all every player. He's not accountable or anything like that. Like, that's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, like talent wins in this league, but at the same time, it's like, no, I just want to trust in Dan Campbell and what they're doing, man. Like, if they think these are the guys they want to go to war with, I want to go to war watching them, right? Like,
and I think that statement that he made about what his mindset when he was a player, I think you can extrapolate that to him as a coach too, right? It mattered so much to him at that time to not be a player that looked like he was giving it up. And so now so much of his motivation isn't, this is what I want for myself. It's, this is what I want for the players. I don't want to let the players down. I don't want to let my fellow coaches down. I don't want to let the general manager, the owner down. And someone who approaches their job like that, I mean, you always want intrinsic motivation, I would say. You want to be motivated by yourself. But to have a guy that is so selfless, that isn't thinking about his own personal goals more so than just like, how do I get Sheila this championship? How do I get this player this Pro Bowl? How do I get this quarterback to get his career back? When you coach like that, when you lead like that, I mean, talk about a guy who you know is going to go down with the ship or go or right the ship. Like, he is going to do whatever the fuck it takes.
He talked about it when he took the job, right? Remember, like when he was talking about Detroit was one of those places. I told my agent, like, if there's a chance I could get in front of them, get me in front of them, because he's like, if you win here, it'll be special. Yeah. So he's like talked about like from the city standpoint too. So, man, yeah, okay, we can't be getting too excited. It's gonna be up all night.
All right, let me blast through some of these subscriptions and alerts and stuff like that. Captain James Kirk with the 50 bit says, other than the obvious in Malcolm Rodriguez, is there a name we should be looking at to replace Scott Daly? Oh boy.
Someone said Malcolm Rodriguez? As a long snapper? Do y'all know something we don't know?
I don't know.
Is that great Aunt B in the chat?
Yeah, I could literally not name you another long snapper in the league. Is Jimmy Landis still around?
Can the mule transition real quick? Yes or no? Is that legal? I want to know.
I mean, they could. I mean, Jack McQuaid makes sense, right? He spent training camp with him for a little bit.
Oh yeah, Jack McQuaid.
Dude, I thought you were okay. I thought you were definitely, when you said Jimmy Landis, I was like, oh, that's the guy that the Lions like cut in the offseason. No,
that was the guy they drafted. That's right.
Yeah. What's he doing? Oh yeah, I think we looked him up. I think he's like slinging real estate or something. MLS.
I believe it.
Can he sling a ball?
I was gonna say, can he still spin it?
Woodchuck Hunter with 100 bits says, I love to drink Vernon's with my belief. I said Vernon's on purpose, guys.
Yeah, guys. So many people didn't get that joke.
Yeah, it was Blandino, right?
Yes, he tried to make a friendly with Detroit, and he said Vernon's. Yeah. We all know it's Verner's, guys. Yes.
I'm a Michigander, true and true. I know.
And then also, wasn't it Kirby Joseph in the offseason?
Yeah, he didn't know what Verner's is.
Try it. Black cherry, underrated.
Ooh, I don't think I've ever had that. Amiz, thank you for the follow and then using your Twitch Prime here. Very much appreciate the support. I hope you're still here and enjoying the stream. RGA 10-bit says Aaron Glenn is giving the game ball to Jerry and Cam. That Aaron Glenn giving the game ball to Jerry and Cam shows. I think there's supposed to be another word in there, that we don't need to trade for a corner. I did think it was telling.
Depth though.
JT Sam 100-bit says, it seems to me a lot of people think this is the year to go in because people are afraid of losing Ben Johnson. I guess the question of taking advantage of the window depends on if you believe Dan Campbell can find replacements for coaches and Brad Holmes can find replacements for players that won't be able to pay for. If you don't believe that they can build a sustainable team, they are not the right regime. I believe they can, but it seems like a lot of people don't. What about you guys? I think I think you nailed on a lot of great points there because, yeah, I think a lot of times when you say this team's window is just beginning, the pushback is Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's not going to be here next year. And while that's not a certainty yet, it certainly seems like it's
after Monday night.
Okay, relax.
National TV, tinfoil hats in the chat. I'm just saying, maybe Ben Johnson
dialed up a couple trick plays he knew weren't going to work.
Maybe Dan Campbell just switched off Ben's mic and he was like, "No, Jared, run this play where you take Khalif's speed and you take it all away from him, and then you give him the ball and tell him to be a running back."
Perfect.
Listen, we all like Ben Johnson. Most of us say mostly good things about him.
Don't y'all think though
he's not one of a kind?
No, exactly, Jeremy. Don't y'all think, man, that man that we were just talking about that we love for crying and being awesome doesn't have a couple succession plans steaming around in that caffeinated brain of his, okay? I guarantee you he does, all right? Yeah, like Ben Johnson's nice, but
he's not not the only guy who can call an offensive game. He's extremely talented. I'm excited to see what he'll do with his entire coaching career. And maybe this is me bargaining or in denial, but I do think last year proved that he's a guy that is going to wait for the right opportunity, and that might not come next year.
Yeah, and we're not saying it's a guarantee that the new person will be like
as good
as Ben Johnson. We're not saying that either. I'm just saying like it's somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing: the Lions also already know all of this, and they're preparing. Dan Campbell has a list of names.
Yeah,
and it might be internally, it might not be. So, but I think JT Sam is spot on there though, because listen, if you want to, it's one of the more challenging things about being a stable organization is having all those succession plans, because when you're the Eagles and had the year that they had last year, both your coordinators get poached, and look where they are. First place in the NFL right now. And some people say, well, that's because they have, so-and-so is their head coach. Well, no, so who's their is wow, it's too late.
Sirianni.
Is Sirianni the de facto offensive coordinator or no? Does he call plays?
He's their offensive guy. He's an offensive mind.
But does he call plays?
Not sure.
Yeah. And I get that, but
Steichen did before that.
Yeah. If you want to be a stable franchise, and by everything this organization has said, that is their goal. They want to be the next Steelers, Ravens, whatever franchise you want to throw in there. You hear the words today, and it sounds like that too. We don't want. We're in year 3 of our long plan. This is a plan, and so everything has been accounted for. They know that once they start winning football games, that's when the coaching poaching.
Hey,
like that's when the coaching poaching happens.
You might need to coin that as a segment.
The coaching poaching segment.
Yeah. But yeah, it's got to be like a machine, like you're saying, Jeremy. It's got to be just a machine that rolls over year to year, and you just have to plug in new pieces as time rolls on.
And part of this plan, someone chats all over it. Like, if you can be a coach in this organization and it gets you promotions, and you have positions like assistant head coaches where you get some of the necessary experience to eventually pole vault your coaching career, guess who's going to want to come and coach for you?
A lot of people.
A lot of new guys.
Yeah.
That's how you build, man. A self-sustaining system like that.
Yes, C-Ram 9030. We are disappointed they didn't add a backup outside corner.
Yeah.
But you can't, those aren't just out for the taking. People hold on to them because everybody else is thin at corner too. Well, not everybody, but you get my point.
Kind of feels like I feel like there's a there's a similarity between like corner depth and tackle depth.
Yeah,
Like
there's
offensive
not
tackle
enough.
depth, right? Like there's just not enough good ones to go around,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like you get them, you hold on to them.
Yep.
Yep.
Except for Rasul Douglas for the Packers.
The Packers don't care because they're at the acceptance of death.
Right. They're trying to stockpile picks to trade up and get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, what if you said if the right opportunity for Ben Johnson doesn't come around, what if the opportunity included like a clean slate and the first and second overall pick to run the Chicago Bears?
For Ben Johnson?
He wouldn't do that
Yeah.
to us.
I think it'd be attractive, but then you'd also probably have to look, and like this ownership group is a little wonky. Like there's some stuff that's been going on.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It'd be fun. You get Caleb Williams and whoever else.
Is there a recent
yeah.
example? This is something that probably no one is going to know off the top of their head. But is there a recent example of like a coordinator going to a divisional foe like that? And
Man,
is
I
that
can't
something
think
that
of
they
one
keep in
off
mind?
the top of my head. I can't think of one off the top of my head. That's what I was trying to think.
Right.
Was
My question
in the own division. Like, how
Right.
do you have an exit interview with Dan Campbell to take the Bears job? How do you have an exit interview? You just
Right.
don't. Right? Like,
I mean, Dan is the type of guy that would be like, I get it, right?
oh yeah, he'd be a class act, but he'd probably be like, and I'm gonna kick your ass twice a year.
Right.
Yeah. The meanest, the squeeziest handshake at the end of the meeting.
Yeah,
I
but
just
not
see it,
mean,
man.
right? Not mean, but just reminding you that he played tight end in the league for. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I am Dan Campbell.
I am curious if that factors into any of this in like history. Do our coordinators? I mean, because opportunities are so rare and fleeting in this league, I almost feel like you should let that happen. But I don't know if it does.
I mean, he turned down the Panthers job, man. Like I don't know. Maybe we're not putting enough stock into how picky Ben Johnson is, because he's from Carolina. That they have a pretty good situation. New owner. They're probably going to get a new stadium and stuff. Blah blah blah. Like
That's fair.
new facility. They had Bryce Young. Everyone was high on Bryce Young as 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, they had the first overall pick.
All right.
yeah.
So
I mean, like it's kind of like the same scenario, just not in the division, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Some people.
And granted, the Bears are going to have probably like 2 top 5 picks. So
Damn, they are. Yeah.
No, they'll start winning some games. They don't have Justin Fields throwing for me. They're fine. They got
big Badgett fan.
Tyson
over here,
Bagent. Tyson Bagent, baby.
Is it Bajan or Badgett?
It's Bagent.
Oh,
Huh?
Bajan.
It's
I don't know if you read, but
Badgett.
he's the next Brock Purdy, but like 3 weeks ago, Brock Purdy.
Dude,
Not-
that
not-
was not the compliment they thought it was when they said it.
Ruh-roh.
So
It was a Bears teammate, right?
yeah, and what does that say about that Bears teammate that in training camp they're like, Bagent is that dude? What is he seeing about Justin Fields during training camp that he's like, Bagent's that dude? Not.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say during the Madden Sim last week, I was joking about that tweet and I said, listen, when Tyler Bagent throws 3 interceptions on Sunday Night Football this week, we're all retweeting the shit out of that thing, right? And he threw 2.
Yeah, it's yeah. Bears.
Anyways, should we get back? Oh, I'm not done yet. Actually, do you have something to say real quick? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna be like, yeah, we probably should do third segment, but also, the one other stupid thing. Can I talk about one more stupid thing that I saw today?
Listen, you're the one that I'm concerned about getting out of here
No.
quick. So if you're gonna extend this drive, do it.
I'll drink an extra coffee in the morning. The Jets saying that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back.
Oh, come on, dude.
What does it mean? Like, what does it mean? Because it feels like it's operating in a couple of different ways, right? Like the one way that it's operating is like Aaron Rodgers is a story. So if we keep on talking about it, we're going to keep like just being a part of the national conversation, right? Yeah. Okay. But then there's also a part of it of it's like can we hold you accountable for being so delusional at this point of the season where you think like you're going to be in a position later in the year where Aaron Rodgers is coming back and it means something? Like, did you see the stat line for the Giants wide receivers in that game against the Jets?
No. I want to go back and look at that box score because someone told me 25 punts, and that's a horror story in and of itself.
6 catches for 7 yards. The wide receivers. The passing game. 6 catches for 7 yards.
I thought the Raiders had it bad last night.
Jeremy, I think it was a long of 5 or 6. It was a long of 5 or 6, Jeremy.
Who played for the Giants receivers?
Yeah, for the Giants receivers. So Tyrod got hurt and had to go to the hospital because that is the unluckiest man
oh my God.
who ever played quarterback in the history of football.
He's the one that got the lung
the
injection.
lung.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right? Like right
In
when he
LA.
gets a chance to be a starter, because he definitely is one. But then Tommy DeVito comes in, and I'm like, there isn't a more appropriate player to enter this game with 2 New York teams that are playing in New Jersey than Tommy DeVito to be the Giants quarterback, and 6 catches, 7 yards.
Oh,
There's the proof.
and the pudding. Damn.
Hey,
That's a
look
tough
at
game
that.
to watch.
52 runs. Saquon had it 36 times.
They're like, you're back from injury, right?
Dear Lord. Look at these
Man.
Look at these quarterback stats. Net of -9 yards.
No defense in the NFL is that good. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
the
no
Giant.
doubt.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy had. I can't believe that Jeremy has contained himself and not run victory laps over the comment that he made when everybody was like, "Oh, why aren't the Lions as far ahead as the Giants and their rebuild? It didn't take this long."
The Giants are 2-6 now. That's
Yeah.
tough.
That was
Tough
also
luck.
my best Jim Gaffigan impression. Of him, so
You
was
know
a
what?
good one.
I ran that victory lap like at the end of last year. I don't need to do it again.
yeah, my gosh, I could not. That franchise paid Daniel Jones. Like, they deserve everything that's coming to them.
Oh my
Wow,
God. Yeah.
look, there's a ton of penalties in this game too.
That was an ugly game. It was played in the Meadowlands too. It was probably like an overcast gray day. Just
Oh, it was an
football hell.
awful game. Like, the weather looked like it sucked, but it wasn't like
Ugh.
raining super hard. It was
Just-
like misty and gross.
Yucky. Just like this game, just yucky with a capital Y. Nasty.
Yeah.
Rained hard, someone said killer corner.
Hell of a punting game though. Not only were there 24 punts in the game, 0 touchbacks.
Tell Hamza we want a 2,000 word breakdown of this game.
Although it's hard to have touchbacks when you're like punting from your own 20.
Oh, well, hold on. Speaking of which, so on Monday Night Countdown, maybe it was raining harder than whatever. It wasn't so bad that you couldn't throw the football, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, clearly Zach
Well-
Wilson was able to do it a little bit.
Somewhat.
But the punter for the Jets, he got the Hemi Award.
The what?
So, excuse me.
I don't know
Like
what that is.
the Hemi Award that Scott Van Pelt gives away on Monday Night Football.
I like
on
Hemi
Countdown.
Turner.
Yeah, look at his punt.
Do you have-
4 inside the 20, but I think that there were 3 that were inside the 5. That, like, literally, it wasn't a player who caught it. It was just downed. Like, I was like, if Hamza ever sees tape of this,
Might keel over.
yeah, that might be it.
It's just crazy. Imagine being like your career day is just a game everyone else wants to forget.
The life of a
Just-
punter.
Yeah, dude.
Nobody's
that?
ever going to remember that game.
No. Everyone's like, delete this. This is terrible for everyone involved.
Except for the Jets. Except for the Jets, who are the team, to back to my original point, are like, you know what? We won that game. We're going to get Aaron Rodgers back. Like,
There's no way.
stop it.
It's like the opening game where Rodgers gets injured and they come back and win that game, and like Jets are like, you know what? We just might do this without Aaron Rodgers. No,
we're gonna do it for Aaron.
No.
Is there any medical precedent in which he could play
None.
football in
Zero.
January?
Zilch. None. Not a single one, Morgan.
So what are we doing here?
And guess what? Even though there's no precedent of anybody coming back like that, are there any 40-year-olds who have done it? And what do they look like afterwards? There's no precedent for that either.
No, so like, why are we still what's the? He did it in September. So it's first September 10th, October 10th, November 10th, December 10th, January 10th. That's 4 months. January 10th is. There's no way in hell. Injury? Yeah, dude. Unless they've been lying to us. That's the only thing I can conjure up.
No. Couldn't be.
What?
That they lied to us?
I mean, they can't lie about an injury like this, right? Like, that would be, you could lose draft picks and shit. But
yeah, you could. But also, like Aaron Rodgers, I mean, the master of saying one thing without really saying the thing he means.
Immunized. That's true. Immunized.
I never said it was a rupture. I just said it was an Achilles injury.
I said it was what's a synonym for a rupture? It's a laceration.
When I said I was coming back this season, I meant fall.
2024. Not then in 2024. Yeah, 4 months, man. I don't know. Can we chill? His Achilles was inoculated. Ben G. Pierogi said his Achilles is inoculated. Oh, that's good.
Nesper, this season of the Masked Singer.
Oh God, he would go on the Masked Singer. All right, let me blow through these and we'll get to our final segment if anyone is still interested in talking about the Lions. Hold on, let me scroll back to where we were. JC Paxton, they give her the 20-month subscribe to the channel. Monkey81, 8-month subscribe to the channel. Cam James Kirk 50-bit says Mike McDaniel's telling reporters he was disappointed in Ramsey's return because Ramsey promised a pick 6, just got a pick. Was hilarious. There's some fun coaches out there today. It's true. He's a little bit corny, but I respect the non-traditional head coach. Any non-traditional, I think, head coach personality is fun. I did see he called it a pick field goal. That was funny. Yevitz, they give her the 29-month subscribe to the channel. Another 100 bits from Captain James Kerr says, the people who don't watch live are missing out, man. You guys could record all of this and people would still listen for 3 hours. We've thought about it. But there are definitely people out there, too, that only want the Lions talk. Here's the thing. When we first got off the ground, we mixed a lot of non-football talk with football talk. And
oh, yeah.
We got we still get mixed reviews just because that's called being a popular podcast.
Oh, there it is.
Hey.
But
Jimmy.
a lot of those people, a lot of the early people are, and I get it. Like, not everyone has 3 hours a week to listen to a podcast. Not to mention we do 4 of them a week or whatever it is. Not to mention there are other podcasts that even podcast listeners want to listen. They want to listen to comedy podcasts. They want to listen to, the Ringers NFL show. Fitting
podcast.
Food podcasts. Is that a thing? I feel like I couldn't enjoy audio of a food podcast.
I hear someone I like talk about food. That would be cool, I think.
I'm not trying to shit on any other podcast, to be clear. I'm just saying I think this works best for us. If you want all of the nonsense and back and forth talk, you watch us live. If you don't, we got a nice trimmed down show for you on the podcast feed. And occasionally we'll give you the scraps on the podcast feed too, so you get a little bit of that. One bit from she loved Jahmyr says, your team is fucking ass.
Why'd you read it?
Sorry, I went Ron Burgundy there where I just had to read the words that were in front of me. She loved Jahmyr. Do you think that's a Packers fan?
I said that in my head, and then I heard what you said, Jeremy, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I don't know if I can do a third segment, if I'm being honest. Like,
I think it's she loved Jahmyr, and I think it's a Packers fan in here. Is that not what's happening?
Well, that was 22 minutes ago. They dropped the one bit. I didn't even. That's how far behind we are on alerts. I'm guessing they're not still here.
Someone dropped a bit just to say that.
Just to say, yeah. At some point, I should probably turn the bit alert up so that we don't even get an alert unless it's 50 bits, because one bit is 1 cent, to be clear. Like, for that person, it was 1,000% worth their 1 cent to troll me and just have me read those words aloud.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Your team traded Rasul Douglas.
It's just cool to have Packers fans come into this stream to talk crap because they feel insecure about their own team.
Right.
Good point. Great point, actually.
That is a great point.
Cool.
Gavin James Kirk dropped 3 different separate 1 bits and then another 1 bits. I'm not going to read them all at this point. Although he says, well, you guys are constantly discussing politics. Maybe stop that, and the criticism would go with it. I don't know if you're being sarcastic there or not, but I feel like we don't talk about politics anymore. At one point, there was a point in which we do, but I think we've scaled back on that because, to be quite honest, I'm kind of sick of it too. And Uncle Indigo with 1 bit says, reading 1 bit comments. Yeah, there you go. It worked. We have not discussed KD6. Is that so? Is that her actual? That's the lady in the crowd who lifted up Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh,
I don't. Her name is apparently KD6. I don't know. Okay, you were being sarcastic.
Thank you, Captain James Kirk. Thank you. That was impressive, though.
Not sex. Six.
6, yeah.
Katie 6 is her name. No, someone wrote Katie 6 in the chat.
Oh. What were you going to say, Ryan?
No, just massively impressed with her ability to just scoop up Jahmyr Gibbs and get him in the stands. Which, Jeremy, what did Eric say that he saw that was called? The Ford pickup?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I like that. The Ford pickup.
That was pretty good.
Private.
I loved how he was in the stand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
he wasn't getting held up. He was standing.
Yes, there was part of me that was like, can he get a flag for that? Because he's all the way in. I was like, if it would happen, it happened to the Lions on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, you take back.
It wasn't his fault he got pulled in, you know.
Indigo? Thank you for the $3, and thank you for I don't know if I said it before, thank you for the other $3. But Indigo likes to tip us $3 because that alert is 3 times as loud as everything else, every other alert.
Awesome.
Indigo, I know you're going to give a lot of money for Movember because you're a good guy like that. But I will once again say, please save all donations until tomorrow. Anyways, we're caught up. Private Pork Chop, thank you for the follow, and I enjoy your name. Let's get into the final segment. I don't even have much of a plan for this one, so we're probably going to keep it relatively short. I think I do want to talk a little bit more about the game because, I feel like we haven't even talked about Jahmyr Gibbs, and we should probably do that.
Yeah, we probably should. He was really he was the leading rusher in the NFL last week.
Yeah, in a lot of categories too. Rushing yards over expected.
Yeah, and the other thing too. Are we going to talk about a third segment?
Yeah, we should.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. All right, here we go.
My crazy old neighbors tried calling me twice, but I'm going to call them back later. Usually that means bad things. It's snowing pretty hard all the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Snowing.
You know, I just realized that I've had trade deadline recap on the bottom of the screen this entire time. We're just going to get rid of it entirely, and because when I type it takes forever. So here we go. Pride of Detroit podcast, cleaning things up here. Final segment of the podcast. Before we move on to kind of future-y stuff, I think we kind of skipped over a major part of the game that I feel like we need to address because it's very exciting. It was maybe the biggest development from Monday night's game, and that is Jahmyr Gibbs. An absolute masterclass of a performance. puts up the best numbers of a Lions running back this year. David Montgomery's had one hell of a year, but he hasn't put up 152 yards in a single game before with the Lions. 152 yards, 5.8 a carry, a touchdown, adds 34 through the air as well. Morgan, I want to throw it to you first, I guess. Just how great of a game was this for Jahmyr Gibbs? And I guess to you, what does this mean going forward? Because I think some people are understandably looking forward and saying, well, David Montgomery might be healthy after this bye. What now?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Gibbs, this performance was just everything that people have been clamoring for, right? Like a lot of the fantasy football community, you know who you are if you think I'm talking about you. It was just impressive to see him carry the load, touch the ball a ton, racked up a bunch of yardage on the ground and through the air. It was cool to see the offensive line really start, wearing on the Raiders front as the game went on. So yeah, just a really impressive. He showed really good vision too. Some of that stuff that stuff that he showed at Alabama that really endeared him to Brad Holmes and the rest of the Lions staff. So yeah, I was really happy to see it. And it's going to be cool to see if they can get him and Montgomery rolling at the same time, because that gives you a nice little thunder and lightning combo.
Brian, what are your thoughts on his night?
Yeah, so I thought I almost wanted the beginning of that game to be Ben Johnson just trolling the fantasy football community, because it felt like we were getting Jahmyr Gibbs out of a fire hose. It was like we wanted just like a solid drink, and then it was just like, here's the whole thing. We're just going to him on every play. It's like he's catching the ball, he's running the ball, he's doing everything. And it was really encouraging to see him get better as the game went on, right? Like that was the thing that was super encouraging to me as somebody who realizes how, just like central David Montgomery is to this Lions offense and their identity when it comes to wanting to establish the run. Like this was Jahmyr Gibbs' coming out party. Like he's here, and what a great problem it is for the Lions to have, because I think it was Scott Van Pelt who asked Ryan Clark about this on the broadcast after the Monday Night Football game, where it's like, does this get weird? Like, because the running back 2 kind of has a performance like this, and then it's like, okay, well, what do we do moving forward? He's like, what's that like? And, Ryan Clark just kind of summed it up as, well, you have that guy in your room now. You know what I mean? It's not like, kind of voicing the idea, Jeremy, that like, if there's a coaching staff that's going to insulate itself and prevent itself from ever having some kind of, petty RB1 or RB2 thing, that's not even on the table. It's just like, now you have 2 horses in the room. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's a great problem to have.
Yeah. And I get some of the consternation about it. I think a lot of people just want it to be the Jahmyr Gibbs show from now on. And in some cases, I totally get that. I get the argument too of like rhythm, right? I have a feeling when those 2 guys are healthy, it might be kind of a drive-by-drive thing where they're going to give the ball to Montgomery one drive, it'll be the Jahmyr Gibbs drive the next, and if you ask players, that does disrupt rhythm sometimes. But we've also heard this coaching staff say, we'll go by rhythm, and then whoever is feeling it, we'll ride with them the rest of the way, or until it stops working, and that's okay. That's okay that some days David Montgomery might get 20 carries the next week it's Jahmyr. It's okay if it is a timeshare. It's okay as long as it keeps working. And we've seen now the offense work under David Montgomery. We've seen the offense now work under Jahmyr Gibbs. And so whatever works, whatever week, that's fine. Maybe it'll be game plan based. Maybe they need a more physical runner against this defense. And they need a more north-south guy the next week. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs takes more of a receiver role. Maybe now that he's had a little bit more comfort, they're going to trust him a little bit more on third downs because he's shown improvement in pass protection. Maybe he does slide into more of a receiving role while David Montgomery is your lead back. That wouldn't surprise me either. But now the Lions have options, and that's not a problem. That is a good solution. You're talking about depth. You're talking about different weapons. You're talking about being able to attack defenses in different ways with different players. It's great. And I don't have the answer. I don't know what they're going to come out when both these guys are healthy. I do suspect that David Montgomery will probably assume the majority of the carries, but I think it's going to be a lot closer to a 50-50 split than it was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and it's gonna bode well for the Lions' chances as the season wears on, right? Where like it's really, really gonna matter, if knock on wood that they're in the playoffs in January, and if you have two healthy running backs like Jahmyr showed last night, and then Montgomery showed through this first half of the season, you're gonna be cooking, man.
Yeah.
And the Lions' offensive line. So
the last thing I'll say on it, and Ryan, if you have something else you want to top it off with as well, is listen, like. We kind of saw like the tip of the iceberg of the two running back sets when both were healthy. I think we could see a lot more of that, because if there's one thing that I think you should take beyond the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs looks like a between the tackles runner that maybe some people didn't think he was, I think trust is what is the biggest thing that he's earned over these last 2-3 weeks. The coaching staff trusts him now. We know how important trust is with a guy like J-Mo. They can't trust J-Mo yet, so he's still only getting 30% of the snaps, 40% of the snaps. I think they trust Jahmyr Gibbs enough now to put more on his plate. It's the same thing with Jack Campbell. It's the same thing with Sam Laporta. Once you show that you're capable of doing multiple things and doing them, being in the right place, pass protecting, running your routes, all that sort of stuff, you build that trust, you're gonna play more. And so now... And they already trust the hell out of David Montgomery. So now I think they are going to find ways to get both those guys out there. Whereas early in the season, they just didn't trust Jahmyr Gibbs left yet.
Yeah. And this might be a tinfoil hat theory. And this is the last thing I'll say about Gibbs. But last night's performance kind of affords you the opportunity to be like, rest up, Monty. Like, we're not going to force you back, right?
Sure.
We're not going to rush you back.
Yeah.
Because I think that, again, for as good as Gibbs looked last night, which was awesome, it was just as encouraging to see the way that Craig Reynolds played.
Very true.
Kind of throw away the fumble, but like I think that you have two guys right there who now you have some trust going into the bye week, and it wasn't just because I think everybody made the assumption that, oh, all right, well, the Lions were missing some big pieces in the middle on their offensive line. Well, they're just gonna probably run a lot of zone with Jahmyr Gibbs, right?
Yeah,
that would be the assumption. I'll tell you that his split, according to PFF, on his carries were 14 zone runs to 11 gap runs. And this is a team that loves to run gap, and that's what David Montgomery's bread and butter is. But when it's almost 50-50 with Jahmyr, that's pretty encouraging.
No doubt.
Yeah, it's leaning into what he's really good at. And yeah, you said it all right, right there, Ryan. I just it'll be interesting and using him more in money down situations, right? Like your point, Jeremy, like trusting them. To me, with this coaching staff, that means like you're in on, like a second half, third down, like we got to have a stop or we got to have a conversion. So yeah, it's exciting to have more at your disposal on those downs.
No question. All right, let's move on to kind of a big picture question or two. And then I want to close out with a little bit of an announcement for our listening audience. But, okay, so the Lions are 6-2. We're at the bye week. They're second place in the NFC. Where do we think this thing is going? Where's the ceiling? Where's the basement? I guess let's start with there. Is anything other than an NFC title acceptable? Like if they were to slide in
NFC North title,
okay.
Not
NFC,
right,
not NFC
like,
title.
whoa.
Sorry, NFC North title.
Like Lord.
I think we can all that's almost more of a hypothetical. I think we can all agree if this team doesn't win the NFC North, disaster is probably a strong word because who knows what happens between now and then, but that is the bare minimum expectation of the season now, right?
Without a doubt, Morgan. I think you look at, even if anything catastrophic were to happen, I feel like they're a team that's just equipped to, okay, well, we can pivot to the run game a lot, right? Could we do something serviceable in the passing game? Like, they could make it happen. You know what I mean? They have such a lead built. And I think it's more so the Cousins news, though, that kind of like almost to me, and for as much as we kind of talked about Dobbs a little bit in the first segment, they're so far in the rearview mirror, I think the rest of the NFC North, that I would agree, Jeremy. I think it'd be a pretty big disappointment.
Okay. Well, then let me leave you with a bit of a trickier question and maybe a little bit more negative of one if you let me wet blanket this for a second. What is your biggest concern about the team going forward? What is the one thing where you're just like, this is the reason why they might not be amongst the top tier teams? What is the one either inconsistency that you've seen among the team, one position, coaching situation? What's the one thing that might limit this team's ceiling? Because we know where their floor is. There's obviously a lot of debate because of what happened in Baltimore about what their ceiling is. So what is the one thing, I guess, that you guys are concerned that might cap this team's potential?
Well, I think one thing that gets said about the Lions a lot is they lack star power. And I'm not sure I agree with that. Like, I think they have stars. They're just younger and they're still on their like upward trajectory of becoming like a star with a capital S, like St. Brown and Hutchinson and Sewell and so on and so forth. Right. But I still do think that the Lions lack depth at a few key areas, and outside corner is one of them. Just for the time being, like if that could be, pretty close to a disaster, like you lose someone like Cam Sutton or Jerry Jacobs for any length of time, it can be troublesome. So that's something that still worries me that might hinder the Lions in the long run.
Yeah. Feels like that secondary is a bit of a house of cards at the moment. Yeah. For sure. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah. I guess I think it's still this team's approach to defending mobile quarterbacks, but that's a question that I think at least can be answered in the second half of the season, right? Because like they're going to play some, right? Like if Justin Fields is healthy, they're going to see one. If they, if Josh Dobbs is playing, they might see him a couple times. Like I think that you're at least going to get an opportunity to get more data points, but like I think that's my biggest concern right now is the data point of. Again, it's not a guy who's a running quarterback, right? We talked about this before with Lamar. Like he's an entirely different kind of player, but just mobile, right? The guys who can extend plays like Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, and he's even more of a kind of running, I guess, quote unquote quarterback. But guys who can just extend plays, those teams are going to be around.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like in the playoffs, right? You have the Eagles, you have Geno who's beaten you a few times. You have the 49ers who their defense is obviously their bread and butter, but like you have to trust in Kyle Shanahan. But like I think that's ultimately my concern is like how can they handle those quarterbacks?
Yeah. And I'm going to stick with the defensive side of the ball as well, which is I think clearly all of our anxieties are kind of surrounded by and understandably so. Ben Johnson has proven himself for I think long enough to have belief that even during some rough patches over the past couple weeks here, he's still the right guy and they'll still figure things out. Pass rush. To me, pass rush is just still too inconsistent. It was obviously good against the Raiders, but they had to be very aggressive to pressure as much as they did. And I understand their pressure rate was the highest the NFL has seen in 5 years, and that's great, and it's an awesome statistic, but I can't look past the fact that the Lions aren't getting a lot of guys that are winning one-on-ones. They need to be sending that extra pressure to get there. They don't have a guy opposite Aiden Hutchinson that can consistently win right now. Ali McNeil is having one hell of a year, and I think we can't overlook that. But outside of those two, who is a guy that you expect to win consistently on the starting defensive line, on the second team defensive line? Maybe James Houston comes back in December and helps with that, but we also have to remember where James Houston was with his team when he got injured. A guy getting 10 to 15 snaps a game. I'm not sure where that helps come from, and I understand that's why a lot of people are mad today. They didn't get the guys they wanted in the trade deadline. It's a future project. They're able to find ways to generate pressure. I think their back end is playing well enough where they can get some coverage sacks, but I don't know where they get those consistent pressures that you're going to need, particularly when you play mobile quarterbacks, when you play better quarterbacks. Luckily, the Lions don't have a ton of great quarterbacks on their schedule, but once we're talking about the games that really, really matter, because we all agree this team's going to win the division, they're going to host a home playoff game. They're going to play some good quarterbacks in the postseason. That's where I'm wondering where they're going to get the pressure and if they can survive a game that they don't get pressure.
Yeah. And I think to that point, the one thing I want to kind of underline is that like everybody in the league is playing bad quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I think that's a unfair criticism for the Lions to say, like, well, I mean, yeah, they beat Desmond Ridder and they beat Jordan Love and they've beaten a bunch of these okay, but like you can't just say that they did all that but they also beat Pat Mahomes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so everybody in the league is playing bad quarterbacks, but I do think that there's another level to the defenses that play well against good quarterbacks, right? Like it's like the Bengals of the world, right?
Yeah.
It's some of those defenses that no matter how good the quarterback is, they have a game plan to match it. And I think that what you're kind of saying, Jeremy, with the getting pressure and things like that, and I think with me too, with the mobile quarterbacks, it comes back to like, are the Lions malleable enough on defense, right? Like, is Aaron Glenn enough to kind of switch up situationally? Because I think that's one of my big concerns.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. To close things out, I did say we have a little bit of an announcement, and that is, well, by the time you're listening to this, it is officially November, which means around these parts, it is Movember, where myself, I grow out a mustache, much to the happiness of former Lions running backs coach Deuce Staley, but it's not the only thing we do. We raise money for a charity of our choosings, and I'm here to announce that we're raising money again for the Alzheimer's Association this year. We raised over $25,000 for them last year. We are aiming for a much higher number this year. There's going to be a post on Pride of Detroit on Wednesday morning, giving you all sorts of details on the things you can win with your, including some automatic prizes, which is a new feature. Normally, every donation enters a raffle. There are certain tiers where you win automatic prizes, including some pretty cool gifts that I'll let you know about. On Wednesday, we are also supporting the Humane Society of Western Michigan this year through our auction. There's going to be some amazing auction prizes this year, including some one-of-a-kind things like a Mina Kimes water color painting of Penei Sewell. That's real. That's a real thing that we have and are going to be auctioning off.
I've seen it in person.
Yeah.
It's real. It's very real.
Signed footballs from the biggest stars on the Detroit Lions. We're going to be giving away game tickets for the final game of the regular season. Ryan's going to be signing Malik Willis trading cards. And it's all made more fun by our live watching experience. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, I would highly recommend getting in tune with our YouTube and our Twitch, because we do humiliating things to ourselves the entire month. Based on your donations, you can get us to eat gross things, write things on our face, mute us in the middle of a podcast, all sorts of really awesome things. So head to prideofdetroit.com, look for our logo with a big mustache. It's going to have all sorts of information about the drive, including all those prizes you can win, including ways you can donate and help out. So yeah, check that out. But until next time, we'll close things out there. For Morgan, I want to say I appreciate you joining in, filling in last minute here on a Halloween night. Ryan, as always, bringing it. Love you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Well, it's always spooky here.
It's always spooky here. And for everyone who hung around on our live stream, for everyone who is listening at home, thank you so much. It's chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
Eric.
Eric, you want to jump in and take my spot because I want to.
And you just got the kids to bed.
His
man.
Kids are. I'm convinced they're nocturnal.
Yeah, they are, man. They're fruit bats.
Fruit bats. Thank you, Uncle Indigo.
Chat. I will say that technically our donation link is live, although that's not it. The exclamation point Movember, that link is not live yet. That should be live tomorrow. So if you can find it, you can start donating now if you want it. But we're not gonna spin any wheels. We're not gonna do any of the things at this point. But all that should be set up by end of day tomorrow. I'm hoping I gotta have the post up by tomorrow morning. Jill, you're not supposed to find it.
All right. I'm gonna go.
I think we're all gonna go because
Okay.
I'm
all
dying here.
Dude, I'm toast. I don't have anything left in me. I got to be back at school at 7:00 in the morning. I don't know. Monday primetime games suck because
Yes,
this
they
was
do.
what happened.
They do,
This is what happened Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Set you back a couple days.
It's good that it's a bye week, but at the same
bye
time, it also like we're already halfway through our bye week, and I'm just now getting the relief. I'll get the relief tomorrow, so it kind of sucks that we lost part of our bye week, but at the same time, I can't complain. This is a fun season. This is a fun team.
Exactly. I won't complain. I'm trying. Yeah. No way.
Yeah. So, anyways, I don't. Eric, if you're still here, why don't you tell them when the midweek mailbag is? Because I don't currently know, and my plans for the rest of the week is nothing. I don't want to do anything. So I'm going to put it entirely in your court, Eric, when we're going to do the midweek mailbag.
Let's eat some food Saturday.
Sure.
Eric,
It's fine.
what if Eric was
We're
like, I
gonna-
want to do it now?
No.
He's like, the kids are in bed. We can get it done right now.
But
Let's just knock it out.
that will be our first official Movember stream. He says, "Let's go." No.
That's my bad. Sorry.
Don't give
Wow,
him
dude, we made it the whole podcast without talking about Jack Harlow being the halftime show at Thanksgiving.
That's because I can't name a single fact about Jack Harlow except like that NBA ref didn't recognize him or know who he was. That's literally the only thing I know about Jack Harlow.
My girlfriend is excited. That's about it.
but like I feel like to me, whatever. We don't need to get into it. I don't want to talk about it.
You know what my least favorite article
thought
to
about
write every year is? It's the Thanksgiving
one.
halftime show article where I don't know anything about the artist and I just have to bullshit through 150 words.
You didn't love BB Rexa last year?
Sure, I don't. No one even saw the concert. It happened in the concourse.
Dude, we were so confused for like the whole 12 minutes being there. I was so
Colton Pouncey was super excited.
He sure was.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we kind of had to bring out the hammer for him, if you know what I mean.
Bonk.
Yeah.
But I remember writing the article for when Big Sean did the halftime show because Jeremy's like,
Yeah.
Big Sean means nothing to me. Does anybody know anything about Big Sean? And I was like, I do.
I'm not too proud to admit, like, I was just pulling shit from his Wikipedia. I'm like, okay, at first I wrote like, Emmy or Grammy Award winning Jack Harlow. I'm like, oh shit, he's never won a Grammy. All right, Emmy nominated or Grammy nominated. I'm like, all right, what did he win? All right, a bunch of MTV Music Video Awards. Fuck it, that's making the article. I don't care.
I tried to give you that little line. He made the direct to Hulu remake of White Men Can't Jump.
No one saw that. Only
that
my
went direct
buddy
to
Harry
Hulu?
saw that movie, and it said it was absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I'm not watching that for sure.
Yeah, I'm 37. Is that right? Yeah, I'm 37.
What if they were doing? What if they were having Hall of Notes out there?
Are we gonna get back into this?
Hall of Notes, man. You know.
Yeah, Detroit. Jeremy, who is this M&M?
By the way, Eric was. It's very funny. Eric was quite possibly the least helpful person on earth, sitting next to me, trying to write this article.
Oh, that was the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to hear Eric's like Eric has to give like a 25-second blurb on a 250-word blurb on Jack Harlow. Just I texted Laura, okay, he's on it.
Because Eric assumed that I was the guy that knew Jack Harlow because I mean you guys were at his house. Like we stumbled upon this game where it was essentially Name That Tune. And he's
That
like,
was fun, though.
and I was relatively good at it because we were mostly playing 90s and early 2000s music. What Eric doesn't know is that my music knowledge stops, or he knows now, my music knowledge stops at 2002. I don't know anything that happened after that. It is 100% a blur after that.
Oh man, that's wild. You live in a world where the Black Eyed Peas didn't censor their songs.
No, okay, 2004 then.
Okay.
It stopped at 2004. I know the actual title of Let's Get It Started, and it is not Let's Get It Started.
Wait, Laura didn't know Jack Harlow, so
No, yeah, no offense to anybody.
What do you mean no one
really.
knows? Like, here's the thing. I could have pointed Jack Harlow out in a lineup. I know him on that level. I don't know, but I couldn't name a single song. And I listed 2 of his songs in the article that I wrote 24 hours ago. I couldn't tell you what the name of the song is.
Oh,
Have you tried listening to a Jack Harlow song? Okay, that's a Movember goal.
Well, listen.
Live listen for Jeremy, Jack.
A karaoke stream is one of the donation goals. And one of the things you can do with your donations is vote on what karaoke song I do during the karaoke stream. I could add Jack Harlow to that list if you want, but I'm already certain I know what's going to win.
Lovely Lady Lumps.
Nope.
not another Black Eyed Peas song.
That My Humps is one of the options, but that one is not going to win.
I can't remember the other one.
It
was something. It was in Slack. I remember, but
it is. I'll give you guys a hint. It might give it away, and I don't want either of you to say it out loud. But
ideal.
It is an initialed song.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Oh.
Don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. Very good.
Yep.
Perfect.
Jeremy's gonna do. He's gonna do NWA. Your favorite hits.
Your favorite hits.
So, I mean, listen, that may or may not win. It'll be based on donations, and every single dollar you donate is a vote. So if you donate $10,000, that's 10,000 votes essentially. But anyways,
that's amazing.
All that sort of stuff will be detailed at some point tomorrow when I drag my ass out of bed and write and get all the information in one space. Which I'm gonna be honest, it's a miracle if I'll get it out by noon, but I'm really gonna freaking try.
I'm still loving the image in my head of both you and Eric turning to one another with like the look in your eyes of like, I'm expecting the other person to know this.
Oh,
both of you looked at each other like that.
I did not expect Eric to help me about Jack Harlow, to be clear.
It was like the Hutchinson sisters with what's his name?
Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. Jack Harlow.
Jack Harlow.
Damn.
All right.
My wife literally just texted me, stop talking about Jack Harlow so we can eat dinner.
And
all right.
She waited for you. She's a gem.
She's great.
I'm eating alone.
I haven't met her, but I assume she's great.
Yeah, she's all right. But dude, I was watching the clip that McVay Rob put in here, and I totally forgot about that.
What is it? Do I want to see it?
It's you singing the opera rendition of Forward Down the Field.
Oh no, I'm not. Nope, I'm not watching it right now. Nope, absolutely not.
All right, let's get out of here.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging around as long as y'all did. You guys are the best. Thanks to you guys I didn't even see YouTube comments today. I wonder if my multi-stream screwed up. But anyways, those of you on YouTube, appreciate you guys. You're newbies. Twitch, you guys are always amazing. We'll be live again sometime this week to kick off Movember and have a lot of fun and do midweek mailbag and other stuff. Maybe even a Madden sim if I'm feeling spunky enough this week. We'll see. But until then, I'm not even going to bother raid somebody. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your Halloween, and go Lions.